Hey there. Alright. I'm just gonna jump on, react to some videos. Hey, name's Manny V. Uh, and first video we're gonna be watching is this is why I'm playing Classic WoW again. Actually Asmongold Reacting to another video, so a reaction to a reaction basically.
Alright guys, today I'm making a very different video talking about why I am playing Vanilla World of Warcraft yet again.
That's pretty easy. You don't really have anything else to play. Like if Ashes Creations came out, you'd probably be playing that instead. Um, or any kind of like game in the vein of Vanilla WoW, which is like old school MMO.
And just to clarify guys, this does not mean that I've quit Wrath of the Lich King or anything like that, because for some reason people automatically think that when a World of Warcraft YouTuber or Twitch streamer plays any game other than World of Warcraft.
You hear that?
I mean, you could say the same about any YouTuber streamer if they are playing a main game, like if they have their main game and they start playing something else. Like most people are just gonna assume, oh, you quit the previous one. Even if you like they say they didn't, like it's just the assumption a lot of people are gonna make. So, and that's all usually just for those who like main a game, like Asmin with Warcraft for a long time. He had I don't know how long it took him before he was able to kind of branch out away from just playing WoW, and people assuming he would never play it again.
That?
Oh, and I'm playing Vanilla World of Warcraft on Classic Era Realms, of course.
What does that even mean? Classic Era Realms? It's Classic WoW.
Now, honestly, I just ran into this to mess around and play the launch day of this community project, but what I quickly found is the more...
Community projects are private servers?
Oh, okay, that makes sense. I was like, what is he talking about? I thought it was just like a community get together, like on a server, private Classic WoW server, where it's like everyone make new characters together. I thought that's maybe what he was talking about. Okay, private servers. I mean, I don't really get it. Unless it's like something different about the private server. I don't know. That would be the same thing as if they release like fresh Classic WoW servers again. It doesn't seem that fun, but you know, let's hear what he says.
I am playing Vanilla World of Warcraft again. Very strangely, I am becoming more and more addicted to it. Which, if it doesn't...
It's not strange. I mean, you obviously wanted that experience again, otherwise you would not have gone out of your way to find a private server that was just starting. So, it's not something you just stumble upon.
Makes sense to you, then don't worry, because it barely even makes sense to me. I've been moaning about some of the limitations and problems of Vanilla World of Warcraft, you know, big one being there being no dual spec, for instance. But despite all of the problems...
Of course he's having fun, he's playing a hunter.
Vanilla WoW has...
That's true. Hunter's like the go-to spec if you're not that... Like, it's good when you're not geared, it's good when you're geared. Asmon, I believe, plays mostly warrior, so it's like, okay, you're kind of trash early on because warriors get melted before they can really do anything when they're not so geared. But they're crazy once they are geared. Like, hunters can't even compare.
As for some reason, I'm just enjoying
in the
it.
PvP scene.
I think there's certain aspects of Vanilla that Wrath of the Lich King Classic simply does not have. You know,
I think also, like, everybody likes the fresh experience. You know, new server comes out, everybody's like, oh, fuck yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just a new server. Expansions will do the same. Basically, when you get everyone to kind of start out around the same level, like, it's probably the most popular time an MMO is going to ever get. That's usually, like, when the servers, like, get really hit. Is usually at the start of an expansion or a release or whatever it may be. So yeah, I mean, that's... Like, Josh Dryface really goes into it with one of his videos. Really like that video. I disagree with some of his points, but as a whole, like, he's like 100% correct. Like, I'll probably react to that video someday soon, but yeah, no, that's... I think that's across the board. Anything where everyone kind of starts together at the same time. I think it's also like being part of that event. Like, it is an event in a way, and people love going to events. So
we're all playing together, everybody's leveling together, like it's all happening, and then everybody hits 60, and then the molten core grind starts up, and then people lose interest.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Because it's also a case as well, I believe, is at least with MMOs, is you start to diverge. Like some will go towards crafting, others dungeons, raids, farming. Like it's a path. Like in the beginning, everyone's on that same path, but then as you further go along it, there's different branches that you can take, like different turns, and then the big crowd gets split up to the point that you may not see too many people because some get tired of the journey and they leave early. So that makes sense. Like it's much funner to walk around along a path with friends, like people around you, even if maybe they're not your friends, at least they're around. So, because I'm like, yeah, let's just keep watching.
Fresh to
Don't get
death.
me wrong, Wrath Lich King
Yeah.
is a good game. It's pretty much the peak of World of Warcraft when it comes to the raiding scene, and there's loads of great extra features like
Peak when it comes to the radiancy. I don't think that's true, but I would say it's probably the biggest turning point when it like they really came out with a lot of good ideas. But I wouldn't say peak just because it's old now, so people can just roll over it. So I don't know, like maybe if that was what you were into, that would be considered peak. But for a lot of people who did it and they came back, like it's just, especially if they kept up with retail WoW, it's like they're kind of jokes of raids.
more classes being viable, multiple raid difficulties, and the leveling is much faster, but what it really doesn't
Banner.
have is world content outside of leveling your character.
World content outside of leveling your character. I do think that vanilla probably is best in slot for this.
It definitely is. Whether that's like really good or not so good, like that's a whole different question. It definitely had its bad sides to it, but it was a lot of fun when you first got into it. So
Yeah, I would agree with this.
and I'm assuming he's talking about PvP
And this
more
is
than
where
PvE,
I think vanilla excels.
because World PvP was way more prevalent than I think any Warcraft expansion. So
Over any other expansion. The world of World of Warcraft is much more alive because it's designed in a way to keep the world as relevant, challenging, and interesting content.
love you
By the
too.
way, guys,
I don't necessarily think that's entirely true. I think that the reason why the world is relevant is because of world buffs. If you took world buffs out of WoW,
In terms of PvE, 100%. In terms of PvP, I don't agree. Just because a lot of the PvP, World PvP had very little to do with world buffs that I recall. But in PvE, yeah, 100%. The world buffs were. I mean, it also sparked PvP, don't get me wrong, but they were a thing even on PvE servers. So,
out of raids, I bet the world would become a lot less relevant really fast. That's the biggest reason.
if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel.
yeah, but I agree with Asmon there, but only in the PvE sense, because it's. And even then, it's like not every guild really focused on it. Usually it was like the higher end guilds because they were like trying to min max. So
My subscriber only video, I've got this really great gold making guide, how you can flip about 500 gold per day in about 20 minutes. It's really, really easy. We've also got
you the way you do that is you go to a website called G2G. You flip your $20 and then you flip
Yeah.
it into 500 gold. That's how
I think you get more for 20.
it works. A little spoiler there.
Maybe. I don't know the prices for Classic WoW, so. But 500 for 20 minutes, I'm assuming it's a ton for Classic WoW, because I remember back in the day, 100 gold was pretty hard to get, let alone 500, so.
a really good alt leveling guide for you to check out.
Any GDKP
So
enjoyers?
I've spent over 30 hours playing my
GDKP.
new
Oh,
hunter,
yeah.
and most of that has been spent in huge raid PvP battles in Westfall. Because the Horde
Yeah, that's what I was talking about, PvP. Like, Westfall was really big, Tristful, by Terran Mill and stuff. That was probably like the biggest PvP zones I can think off the top of my head. I think Duskwood a little. Um, Not too much because I think it's just too close to Stormwind. But let me think. I think those are like the two big ones: Westfall and Trustfall. Um, Trying to think. Yeah, those would be like the two main ones that I recall where World PvP was like a really, really big and almost always happening.
Or for some reason,
It was a lot of fun, not gonna lie, um, especially early on. But I think as the game got further along, it became less fun because you had more and more people who were basically like in AQ 40 gear and stuff. So they would almost one shot like people who weren't raiders. I mean, I raided, so it wasn't a big deal for me. But I remember a lot of my friends just stopped playing around that time. So
I thought it would be a good idea to grief the Alliance at Deadmines by preventing us from going inside of the instance and constantly killing the escort quest for the Defiance traitor. And
Yep,
this has caused
that's about right.
absolute chaos.
I don't really remember doing that myself as a horde player. I know I went to Westfall to kill people, but that was because you had to go to the dungeon to queue up, not like down where you just queue up with the little looking for group finder. So we would go and buy the raid and kill everyone by the raid or the dungeon.
And deep.
And it was also like a lot of Warcraft horde players wanted to go there just because of the sword drop. Like there was really good gear there, but it's in an alliance zone area. Like it was just kind of stupid, but yeah, it forced PvP. So I guess that was a plus.
Faction rivalry on my server. The amount of drama
Excuse me.
in this situation is absolutely insane.
Oh yeah.
The guy who organised these griefing events has actually been banned and apparently had a mental breakdown and his guild disbanded.
That's kind of we're gonna lose or get some mental breakdown from being banned from Warcraft. Like that reminds me of that old video. Don't know if anyone remembers with a kid like his parents take away or cancel his Warcraft or something like that. I don't remember exactly what they did, but then he like shoves a remote up himself, like he's going like crazy, hitting himself, jumping in the bed, like it's like a freaking teenager too. He's like looks like 16, maybe 17. Like what the heck, dude? It's just a game, and especially now, like with so many other options, like there's no reason.
It's classic WoW.
That's true. Classic WoW. I don't know. I mean, but then again, yeah, there's private servers, so I don't know.
Yep. That's about right. I'd expect that.
But despite all that, the whole event has been extremely fun.
I guess for Classic ending, getting banned from Classic is just like it's like your wife leaving you with the kids. Like it's a world. It's like life-changing event for you.
You know, as irritating as it was to get that escort quest griefed multiple times in a row, I joined a raid that made a counter-griefing group to get some payback by fighting back the Horde and getting them out of Westfall, but then we journeyed around all of the major Horde locations, ganking people in the open world and preventing people from doing group quests and even basic quests, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. I think
It's really cool, but I would say, at least in today's climate with gaming, a lot of people don't game, like have time to game all day. Um, I think it's to the point that if this was a thing for games now, it just really wouldn't fly. Because imagine like you weren't part of that group that ganked in Westfall. You're just doing your own thing. Then all of a sudden, this big group of Alliance players, they are coming for revenge, but you had nothing to do with it. So you get killed, and then you get killed again because they're farming. They're like camping that spot because they knew that's where people quest. Like it's a good questing area. Trying to think like where that would be. I'm assuming based on what we're seeing in front of us, maybe Fairless. I'm not sure, but yeah, that's it would get not. It's fun for people doing it, but it's similar to like if you're playing an OP character. Like it's fun for you, but not for other people around you.
Fun for you, but not for me. BB just bitch slapped Lexi was hysterical.
Okay.
I was holding her, and she went to lean in to give BB a kiss, and BB went like this. Get the fuck out of my face. The fuck is wrong with you? Get your ass out of my face. No, therapy's not in session.
All right.
All that stuff is
No
really
therapy.
fun. I remember whenever they added cross realm zones and like, you know, they had cross realm in WoW for the first time. We did this all the time. It was so fun. It was actually like some of the most fun I ever had in WoW. But the problem is that
I think also like it became really, really, really fun when like both sides were kind of even, and I think that's one of the main problems with like world PvP is like it's rare you run into where both sides are kind of pushing and pulling in terms of like the fights. Like that's why Tristfall and Westfall were like really fun there. Westfall not as much, if I remember right, just because it's closer to a like it's mainly an alliance territory, so they had like people who could fly in, versus Horde where it's just like a long, long walk. So I think Tristfall though was like two, like you had the Horde town, then you had the Alliance town that weren't too far from each other, and then that middle ground became like a war zone. Like that to me was like way funner than Westfall, just because it wasn't like complete domination by either side.
like it's fun for like a small period of time and then it becomes not fun. And
Yeah, it's the same with playing an OP character. It's the same when you cheat in a game. Like, yeah, it's fun initially, but it wears off much quicker than it normally would.
then that's like what the whole game is. It's like this is fun for a week or it's fun for a month and then it's not fun anymore.
This is Asmongold saying that, so it's like this dude eats and breathes WoW or used to. So it's for normal people, I would assume it's fun for a few days and then not fun. So at least that's what I would assume. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe that is the case. Like for me, like I did like it, played it all the time, and I think the only reason I did stop, I can't even recall. I think I just played through it until Burning Crusade came out. So
Yeah, the Dark Portal. Yeah.
that was also, yeah, definitely true. Blasted Lands.
You remember people would spawn at the Dark Portal and they'd get death gripped like 6 times then die? Oh my god, that was me.
Yep.
It was basically a big payback raid, and we actually totally dominated the Stone Talon Mountains area and prevented anyone from questing in the zone for quite a while.
I do think that like vanilla WoW's world building.
Stone Talon, not many Alliance players went there. They usually, I would say the number one place they went to was the Barrens. They would take over that town, like the main town, and just stop you from getting any quests or turning in quests, which pain in the butt. But yeah, I guess it's similar to the Westfall situation. Like they could do it for a while, but eventually, like Ogremar is just right there. So
Is superior to pretty much all other expansions.
unless you're in a server where Alliance is the majority, which really sucks if you're in the opposite side of a faction, because they just farm your main city. Like it's just stupid.
Like the world building and the amount of travel that
Because back then, like if you had enough players, you could literally kill your way through and kill the leaders of the whatever. I think you could still do that, but I think it was easier back in the day.
the player does around the world in Classic WoW is superior to pretty much every other expansion.
I also forgot to mention that as part of our counterattack to reclaim dead mines, someone went all the way to Duskwood to pull Stitches, and then Stitches started one-shotting and totally owning the Horde in dead mines. And then we finally actually got dead mines back under Alliance control. And this kind of stuff can only happen in a world-driven MMO, not an endgame focus.
Do you remember whenever we did this same shit? It was like Sony and like all the Horde boys, and then we were trying to bring Tiramis the Devourer over to the other city, back in the Classic WoW beta.
Focused MMO.
Yeah, that shit was fun.
Because obviously Wrath of the Lich King has turned into that. I mean, it turned into that in TBC, to be honest. But this is something that Vanilla doesn't have. And the point I'm trying to make is Vanilla is more of an MMO than the following expansions ever will be. The world is a thriving and social environment. You don't just log on and raid log and then log out for a week like you do on retail and...
I feel like...
I think so, actually. I think you do that. I think the reason why a lot of people didn't really do it too much with WoW is you felt like you were falling behind in the grind. So
This guy, I mean, like, to say something like that, I feel like this is rose tinted glasses.
100%. Like he's living in the past. I mean, let's be fair. This dude, there are WoW official WoW classic servers. He's still playing on WoW private servers. Like, that's a very certain individual who does stuff like that. So
Because
he is basically trying his absolute best to relive a moment that's long gone.
I remember this is exactly what we did. People got their world buffs and they logged out for the whole week.
Yep.
That was the whole problem with world buffs in the first place.
That or they do the raid and leave. Basically, they jump on, do what they feel like they need to do. I think PvP was like one of the few things not, just because you would lose your rank fairly quickly in PvP, so you pretty much always had to be doing it.
Classic. And to be honest, this element is kind of killed off once everyone has got to max level in Classic WoW.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, sure. Before max level, yes, he's right about this. Okay.
However, in Classic, there were incentives to go back into the open world. Like, for instance, world buffs and the AQ opening event.
Which, by the way, everybody hated world buffs. It's important to keep that in mind.
And a lot of people really didn't like the AQ event either. Like, the people who liked it were like kind of the hardcore people, like the min-maxers again. Like, the things he's talking about that made, like, he thinks is like really good are things that kind of hardcore players would like. But the hardcore audience is much smaller than the wider MMO audience. Like, they're maybe, what, 20%? Maybe less, honestly. So
in vanilla, there's always going to be world PvP situations for a big part of a leveling experience, as the Horde and the Alliance quests are in the same areas, round about the ballpark of, well, over level 20. And there's even endgame open world content like world bosses, which, again, we had a little bit of world boss action in TBC, but it's just totally gone by the time Wrath of the Lich King turns up. Whether guilds fight over world boss...
are they gone? I would agree, but at the same time, I think the zones in Wrath are just so much better. At least to me. I'm trying to think. There was a few group ones, like I think more group bosses. I don't know. It's hard to say. And those to me are kind of the same. I mean, obviously not really, but like it forces you to play with other players, kind of thing. So.
Kills or organize a router for world boss kills.
This mage has no fucking idea what he's doing. Like, this rogue should have been dead like 30 seconds ago.
The point is, the whole process involved...
Like he stood too close for blind, and it's like the GCDs. It's like every GCD is like 3 seconds. Like he didn't do a rank 1 frostbolt there. Like, what's going on here? Like that arcane explosion. Like, what's this? Come on, you better not lose this.
Players from the server interacting with each other. Whereas in Classic, on a majority, you only socialize with your guild. You don't really interact with other people on your server.
That's how it's supposed to be, yeah.
It's almost like the other guilds on your server may as well not exist by the point of Wrath of the Lich King Classic. Because your social bubble in Wrath becomes smaller than it did in Vanilla.
I do think that like GDKPs and like pug culture did stem some of this, and it made it better.
I know that people who played Vanilla were actually friends with people on the opposite faction, because again, like organizing world boss kills and stuff like that. I know people cringe.
Organizing world boss kills. Most importantly, reporting everybody on that's not part of the coalition, talking in general chat at the same time to get them automatically silenced and suspended from the game.
I never ran into that, but then I was usually part of those groups, so I mean I never reported anyone that I can recall. I would assume this is like the hardcore of hardcore, or like degenerate hardcore. Actually, I actually had a friend who was like in that culture. He was like in the top guild that was known for having like toxic players. but they were like, I think the second best guild in the game. So, or at least on our server.
That's right. That's the good shit. Oh yeah.
And he became a complete douche. Like no one wanted to play with him, like outside of the guild.
The word social. Like when I say social, I'm not saying, oh, you join a dungeon group and you make friends of them and they become your best man at your wedding or something. I'm not talking about that, and I'm not talking about, oh, vanilla makes you make friends, and then people will be like, oh, well, why on earth do I want to make friends? I've already got friends in my guild or whatever. It's the fact that the social experiences exist. I'm not saying every social experience has to turn into some kind of online friendship. I just personally find these social elements of gameplay in MMOs to be more fun.
That's one of the reasons why I had a lot of fun in New World back in the day, is because, like,
I would say, I'm surprised New World didn't really. I think it did capture a lot of the classic Andes or classic Warcraft players, because it actually is very similar to it, other than like the combat and the like looks. I'm trying to recall. I think New World needs some world bosses. Not gonna lie, like that would be really really cool. Yeah, honestly, I think the New World devs need to play more classic WoW and try to lean towards that, while still keeping like some modern like quality of life features.
I just started the game, and it's like, yeah, I had like viewers on the server, but like I made my own friends too.
Yeah.
And I think that like being able to make your own friends and exist in a world where like everybody starts off on the same spot. Back in the day, it was like a year and a half, it's like 2 years ago. It's a while ago, man. Shit.
I mean, he also did the same with Final Fantasy. When I was watching his streams for when he was playing Final Fantasy, he made a lot of friends during the for the raiding, which is always cool. Like when you're doing pickup groups, and then you make friends in that group. Like I know what this guy's talking about with the social aspect of it, but at the same time, like let's be fair, most people don't really like that kind of stuff. At least not all the time. Like they kind of want to do it when they feel like it, and that's why Classic WoW I think was really good, because you really didn't have to do almost any of that social aspect. You could play the game completely solo.
And the smaller, bubbled social elements of, classic WoW as it is now.
Yeah.
And I know people are going to be saying, well, I don't like PvP, and honestly, open world PvP is very boring. Well, it's not all about open world PvP.
It's mostly about it. Like you're in denial if you really think that it's not at least like 80%, like 90% of what like the social aspect you're talking about in Classic WoW. Classic WoW did not have a whole lot of PvE world content. It was mostly PvP. Let's be fair.
The open world itself is more challenging. There's open world challenging elite group content. I have no idea why.
I would say it is open world high level elite content. But
yes, like max level usually. Also, the problem with that is like you can't have the rewards too good other than because people are going to make like these big groups and just steamroll through and get all the loot. So they made it to where yes, it exists. Yes, it was challenging, but the rewards did not match the challenge most of the time. So, because if they put in rewards that would be equivalent to like dungeons, then you just get groups that would steamroll through it. So
look at this dude. He's level 48. Is he 48? Like, what do you mean? How's he 48? Oh no, it's a mage. Like, what level is he? How the fuck do I even know a level? How fucking level is he?
Yeah, this guy's UI is just kind of crazy.
I don't even know what level he is. It doesn't even say. Where does it say what his level is? The fuck? He's 40. He's two. No, he wouldn't be 40, because if he was 40, it would be a skull. He's 51? Nah, bro, that's Artem. That's a pet. Or that's another guy in his party or some shit.
Either removed the elite quests in TBC. I mean, they kept a few, but they're normally only like kill this beast or this boss, and that's it.
Whatever.
So, I'm talking about things like Dunga Rock, Stormguard Keep, Pyrewood Village, Stonewatch Keep, these castles, these haunted villages which are dominated by elite enemies. You very simply cannot solo these quests.
I think some classes might be able to do some of it, if not like all of it. So I remember, like one of my friends, like that was what he played WoW for, or at least classic WoW back when we played. Was he was on a mission to solo anything and everything he could. I'm pretty sure he was either a mage or hunter. I can't remember. It was just like someone who could kite crazily.
No.
These quests require at least 3 to 5 players, preferably 5, since the content is very, very challenging. These quests provide a stopping block for the solo player. The solo player can't progress on these quests. If you want really good XP rewards and good loot, you have
Decent loot, not good loot. Like they're okay. They're better than what you'd get normally. That's true, I guess.
to either make a group or join another group to complete the content. Whereas in TBC, these zones became more or less soloable, preferably 2-manable. But the mobs aren't elite anymore. Some elite quests and group quests remained after TBC, but
I didn't know they removed that. I wonder why.
like I said, are only small ones. And then in retail, they're practically non-existent, to the point where you can very easily level to the max level entirely on your own. Actually,
I don't think that's a bad thing.
It's also, you can do that anyways. You just gotta, you don't have to go to these places. It's not the only places to level. Like, he's acting like as if there wasn't another option. And there was, and most people took it. Most people that played, if I recall correctly, did not really do this stuff. So, like me and my friends did it, but I had a group of friends who we eventually raided, like, so it's like, but like I ran into solo players. Sometimes they would join us, and we'd just invite them. So it's, I don't know. I think it's almost like he's living in an alternate reality, like in his memories.
I do think that you should have to, like, leveling with people in a group in an MMO probably should be a better idea.
Yeah, it's the more optimal route, but it's not the only one.
I liked how in vanilla there were quests that if you got together in a group, you could do them in a group but not solo. Yeah, I don't think that having to group up is a good thing. I mean, not having to, but like having options where it's advantageous is good.
at this point, you can actually solo dungeons because there's so many heirlooms in the game. These elite areas were essentially open world dungeons. They could sometimes take a good hour or two to complete and get all the quests done. It felt like
It was really fun. I'm not gonna lie, like, they should have areas like that. It shouldn't be the majority, but they definitely should have a few.
a proper adventure, and for me personally, it's one of the most fun things.
New World has them too. But at the same time, it runs into that problem where if the rewards aren't that good, or at least equivalent to dungeons, no one's really going to do them. And if they are equivalent to dungeons, people are just going to, like, rush them. Like, they're going to create a huge group, go in there, melt everything, and just, like, it's chess runs. That's basically what it is chess runs that New World had for a long time. Which is boring after, like, the first run. So, like, it'd be different. Like, what they should have done, I don't know if they have, pretty sure the technology is theirs, where after a certain amount of players get into that thing, they get phased into another, like, whatever server, whatever you want to call it. Like, phased, I think is what they call it. I don't remember. But anyways, that way there's a limit to how many players can be in that area at one time, so that you're not just steamrolling everything. At least I think that would be the best route for those kind of events, because otherwise, I mean, it kind of sucks because you're making it harder, but at the same time, if the rewards are the same, I don't see why they should make it easy.
Things you can do in World of Warcraft, because it's fun doing a dungeon, obviously, and then add to the mix of that the potential for PvP skirmishes along the way, especially in that Stormguard keep in Arathi Highlands. I mean, I have very fond memories of getting into loads of scraps in that area, and obviously there's an area where the Alliance are kind of...
I think that, like, getting into scraps is always fun, right?
Yeah, I think most people would agree.
Right? I mean, like you go in there, you get your ass beat, you go back, you beat their ass, maybe you get your ass beat again, maybe you have to wait. You know, it is what it is. Uh,
As long as the walk isn't too crazy, I would say most people would find that really fun. BRD was a bit rough, if I remember right, or the Black Rock like mountain area. So I remember the walk was always a pain, and you'd always get ganked like on the way there from people. I forgot about the world PvP in Black Rock Mountains. Like, oh my god, that was so bad. Um, I think what was it, Priest? He could mind control you off of it, or did that come later? I just remember just so many deaths because of that place. Trying to get some molten core.
I think that's good. It's a rough and tumble life. The problem is whenever like the game gets played out to the point where people are just camping dead mines.
Yep.
They're just like they're sitting there camping dead mines and they're level 60 and they have Bloodfang. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the game now. This is what you do. So that's what the problem is like it's like most of the spontaneous world PvP, I would argue probably adds more flavor than it takes away. But the problem is that there's
Adds more flavor than it takes away. I would agree if there's certain limitations to it. Like, I don't like how high levels can go and camp low level areas like that. Because you can't fight back. There is no fighting back. You literally, they look at you, you're dead. So I would say, you know, what'd be really interesting is if they could have it where you enter a zone, like whatever level range that zone is, you get put down to that range. You get scaled down, so that way, you know, you can't just like farm newbies and stuff, or at least give them a fighting chance. Like if it's a newbie who just happens to be really good at games coming in, and they could, you know, fight back. Because there's nothing more frustrating than knowing that you can't do anything. Literally nothing you can do. You could call for help, but if no help comes, you got to stop playing for that day, basically.
a lot of griefing that happens that
Exactly what I was basically just saying.
makes it unfun for casual players that have limited time to play the game.
Not even just that. It's also like normal players who aren't the best geared, or normal players who aren't max level, especially in like classic WoW. Max level was a feat in and of itself, like not crazy hard or anything like that, but definitely something like you wouldn't be able to do easily.
Safe because they have mobs that are neutral to them, and we have to, as a horde player, go into that area.
Like as a streamer, I cannot enjoy this because everybody's like, "Oh, that's Asmongold. Wait, let's go get it." You know, they're gonna see me and notice it. It's like, "Oh, it's me." Gonna go.
I mean, that goes both ways. I mean, you probably get more helpers as well, I would assume. Um, I think you were known for like begging for gold. I could be wrong. But yeah, that's definitely the case. Like, because it's an event. People love events. Killing a streamer is an event. So you're going to get way more people who want to do that. So,
Go kill me, right? But I think for an average player,
and I think any rogue with any kind of ego, like that's going to be their main thing is like, okay, I'm going to go sneak up on the streamer and kill them on their stream. Like that to them is just like the ultimate ego boost.
it can add a lot of flavor.
Because we actually have quests in that area, so it's a very, very challenging quest for the horde to do when there's alliance knocking about, so you actually have to make the effort to, well, kill the alliance.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you know how I always used like Sword Art Online, like fucking.
You also got to kind of remember, yes, Classic was big, but it didn't have as many players as Warcraft has now. At least I don't believe so. Definitely doesn't feel it. So it's like you can't really have these kind of mechanics. The mechanics fall apart the more players there are. For example, say there are just more Alliance players now. All of a sudden, just okay, you also have Ford, but if you notice, they're still doing just groups of 5. I don't think there was a limit on the amount of Alliance players there because it's not like they were in groups. So that and what, especially if they're ranged, what's stopping them from just like picking you guys off, running to NPCs and stuff. Like it just becomes way harder the more players you have, the more players on the server, because players are the difficulty. So the more, it'd be like if all of a sudden you were playing a dungeon and then boom, double the mobs. Like 3 bosses spawn instead of just 1. You know what I mean? But you still have the same group.
You know, like Overlord, like these like games. It's like animes about video games as like a way to look at what people really want out of an MMO. Every single one of those games has open world PvP. Keep that in mind. Sword Art Online, open world PvP.
Well, that's also like the power fantasy. It's also why like they're usually like the top player. It's open world PvP, but they're the best players, like skill wise, gear wise. Like no one really competes. Um, Most of the time, like very rarely do they have actually like kind of even fights. Um, but that's the case. Like Overlord, especially the dude's like freaking god mode basically. Like who wouldn't like that? Like you imagine playing classic WoW and then you just boom god mode on max level, best gear that isn't even available yet. You got Wrath raid gear while in vanilla WoW, so like you're just gonna stomp on everyone. So yeah, it's just a power fantasy. I would say that's the main reason. Because there were like game animes. I forget the name of it. There was one where like you basically you start out as a level 1, um, and I don't think it really went anywhere. At least not past the first season. So let's see here. Well, I gotta use the bathroom. Gotta take a break. One moment. All right, I'm back. Let's take a look.
Log Horizon, open world PvP, outside of towns.
Log Horizon is still like the top guild or group, whatever you want to call it, in Log Horizon. Like they're basically the best, from what I remember. Maybe not gear wise, so I think a lot of players had like similar gear, but like I think they were known for their tactics and like team play, which was interesting. It wasn't my favorite by any means, but it was okay.
Fucking Overlord, open world PvP. So
It's also a case where a lot of those shows are trying to base it on realism, and let's be fair, open world, not just realism, but it's like entertainment. Open world PvP, if when done right, is actually really fun, really cool looking. Um, but it's also an anime, so it's all scripted. So
yes, I do think that this is something that people like. It's just that no game has been able to break the problem of a handful of players ruining the experience of the rest of the player base.
I mean, let's be fair, Overlord, he kind of does that. but it's less than a handful. It's just one player ruining the experience for a bunch of people. He's killed a ton of people, and these people don't respawn. So Overlord is like a really bad example for that. Kirito, Sword Art Online. He doesn't really ruin it, but at the same time, it's because he's a solo player. Like, he doesn't mess with anyone. But imagine if Kirito did go on like a killing spree. Like, how long would it take for people to kind of stop him? If he could just respawn and do it again? Like, obviously, Kirito is like a bad, like, also kind of a bad example because people don't respawn. Like, death is forever in that game. So it's like, they also couldn't have a main character like that. The anime wouldn't really. Well, they could because Overlord is that way. Yeah, it's not really a problem. Like, when you're seeing it succeed in anime, that doesn't mean it's going to succeed in gaming as a mechanic. Only because you can't be the main character in an MMO. And I don't, like, lore wise, maybe, like, you're the chosen one. What I mean, though, is there are other players who have equal agency as you do. Like, they equally can be as strong as you. There's not really, maybe when an MMO first comes out, and that could be one of the more, like, another appeal to it and why people play it, is that if you do work hard enough, you can get like much better than the people around you, level wise, gear wise, whatever it may be. But it doesn't last. Others will catch up to you, and there's nothing really you can do about it. Because one, there's almost always going to be a ceiling, and because if there's not, that's just like a Korean MMO. So, but like you, because you're not the main character, you're just a normal person. Like, sure, I think I explained it already, but I'm trying to see if I can make it a little easier to understand. Okay, so plot armor. You do not have plot armor, basically. So, like Kirito, let's be fair. He's a great, like, strong character, like, probably one of the best ones in that, like, world. But if he got jumped, because let's be fair, people who played that game, like, you know, a good amount of them were hardcore, because it was like the opening of a game. Hardcore players are all about that. So there's no way Kirito would not have run into, like, at least a couple of hundred, like, crazy good players. So it's like, I don't know, he has plot armor though, so he only really ran into one. And that was the dude who was cheating because he was a GM. So it's like, in Overlord, I don't think he ever ran into one. I think, I haven't really seen the past season one, which I really should, but, like, he fought someone, like, kind of naked. Like, that he, like, had to gimp himself. So it's like, I don't know. And that was because it was his own teammate. So,
honestly, back in the day, when Season of Mastery launched, that's probably the most fun I've ever had in World of Warcraft when it comes to the leveling experience. Partly because, obviously, vanilla World of Warcraft leveling, as I'm talking about in this video, is infinitely superior, but
Yes, it is.
it's too long. The average player is going to spend 7...
It's too long to do it twice. It's not too long to do it once.
That's true. I would say for most people, that is definitely true. Not everyone, but most. Yeah. I really wish they did more with Season of Mastery, though. Like, I think Asmon does a video on it, and I'm probably going to react to that because it's like, man, they could do so much with that.
days playtime getting to max level, and this was much better in Season of Mastery because they boosted it by 40%. I'd even want it to be boosted a little bit more than that. I personally just think 7 days playtime is a bit too long for the leveling experience in this game, and I think it should be a little bit shorter because, like, leveling in vanilla feels really fun 1 to 30, and then after that, because the...
Isn't that New World? Like, when it first came out?
questing zones do drop in quality. It does start to feel much like a drag. And this is the reason why, this time round, I'm actually playing vanilla differently. I'm not going to rush to level 60. In fact, I don't actually care about getting to level 60 at all. I don't want to do the endgame content because I don't really like the endgame content of vanilla that much, to be honest. I'll be happy sticking around level 30 to 40, getting the best gear that I possibly can, and then focus on just enjoying this open world content, the elite questing areas, but mainly obviously when I run out of those quests to do, it's going to be the open world PvP. I am going to be really, really happy just running around a contested area, getting into 1v1 fights on my hunter. Because for me personally,
World PvP though, I mean, it's not a guarantee or even like the norm to get into 1v1s. World PvP, at least my experience with it. Maybe this private server he's on, that's just the norm, but I don't remember ever being that case. Like sometimes, yeah, but it was the outlier. So
I think this is
He's gonna like that till he goes up against like a fucking warlock or some shit.
oh yeah, warlocks were a nightmare. You couldn't really kill them. Even they were tankier than freaking warriors. But obviously they can hit you from a distance. So
Then we're gonna see what's gonna really happen.
because there's also really not much you can do against them depending on your class. So hunter not too bad, but um, I know warriors really couldn't do much to them. Especially getting fear locked. Oh my god, I forgot about that. I just remembered it. Fear locking was so BS in Classic WoW.
Yeah.
what I
And I think that's what I was talking about earlier. When it's like kind of an even fight, it's really fun. Basically, like that struggle, pushing back, push and pull, I should say. So it's like getting rolled is not fun. And rolling is fun for a little bit, but not like long term.
enjoy the most about vanilla WoW. Because, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of vanilla endgame. I don't think the raiding is its strongest element. So I'm going to play
I think that the social aspect of raiding is its strongest element.
That's definitely true. You can make a lot of friends raiding in Classic WoW. I don't know a lot about long term or like good friends, but you can. Your friends list probably. Well, I guess if they're in their guild, you don't really have them on your friends list. Sometimes. But yeah, that forced interaction.
Raiding itself, killing Gar, nah, not very fun. Getting Thunder Fury is fun though.
If you're like someone who could use it, yeah.
the game the way
I think one thing about raiding though is one thing I didn't like is the it's similar to what almost every MMO runs into, like tanks and healers, like being so low in demand. That say you join a guild, say it's among some friends, like in my case, it was the case. I leveled a shaman because enhancement I thought was pretty cool. I leveled all the way up, pretty much. Didn't really do elemental, wasn't my thing. But just doing enhancement shaman. Obviously not the best spec, but it was fun, especially Wind Fury. But when I got into max level and started raiding, enhancement no one wanted. So either I didn't raid or I switched to resto. And that was one of the big problems with Classic WoW is switching between specs wasn't exactly the cheapest. Especially if you're like, I only healed in raids. Like I didn't heal outside of raids. I didn't like healing. I didn't mind it, I should say, but I much preferred doing damage. Or I think is what at least Final Fantasy kind of helps. So at least you can do some damage. But even then, like I really wish they would find a system where healing and tanking wasn't like as big a deal.
that I actually want to play it instead of pressuring myself to rush to 60 and get ready for raids like most people do.
And let me see if I can clarify that. Like, I don't think the Holy Trinity is bad. I just think most people do not want to tank. Most people do not want to heal. They just want to damage. So it's like, I think giving classes some abilities that do either or would be preferable to having a class that does, like, that's their focus instead. Like, for example, my enhancement shaman, say, like, I could heal, like, on occasion.
I can play endgame raid content in Wrath Lich King.
Or how they added the boulder, like, ability. Like, if you could, like, in the raid, like, okay, pop in totem boulder, whatever that is, earth elemental. You know, so that the team knows, okay, we have a temporary tank for a little bit, and then someone's like, okay, Earth Elemental running low, who's like basically have a rotation, so everyone can go DPS if they want to. I guess I don't even know if "want to" is the right word, but everyone can go DPS. Like there are no 10 classes. I might be speaking like crap, but I really think there is a way to do it.
Because it's better. But Vanilla WoW has the better low-level open-world content, so I can peacefully enjoy both of these MMO aspects by playing both versions of the game at my own pace. I feel like World of Warcraft players have too much of a conforming and future-obsessive mindset. Okay, what I mean by that is, first of all, WoW players, they obsess over what most players are doing.
What most players are doing, I mean, you're kind of doing the same. World PvP and Classic, most players do that. So I don't know if you're in a position to really talk smack about them. But also that's just the human mindset. People are social creatures. Like I said in the beginning, they love events. I mean, you yourself found a private server with a new server opening. Why? If not, because there's a lot of people doing it at the same time as you. So,
This is very true. Like what he's saying, this is 100% facts.
yeah, it is. But you're not going to change it.
Players are playing. And what is the point in playing my character if I won't still be playing it in 20 years from now? Instead of just...
I don't agree with that. Most people do not say, oh, why am I playing this character if it's not going to be around in 20 years? Most people is more like, why am I playing this character if it's not going to be around in the next 2 years, 3 years maybe? Like, as long as there's no, like, it's closing in a year, most people don't really think on that level. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. I'm pretty sure he's wrong in that. Like, 20 years, that's crazy.
Chilling and enjoying a moment and enjoying how you like to play the game.
Most people do. They just don't want their progress to mean nothing if like the game's dying. That's why games dying like that will kill a game, is just knowing or the rumors of a game dying. Because no one wants to waste their time. It's similar to, let me see if I can say this right. Who wants to get into a book that you know is going to get discontinued? Like, it's not going to finish. You're not going to know the ending. Like, yeah, like you're having a good time reading it, but would you really read like a book that was supposed to go 12 books in and it stops at 5? Like, even though those are really good, like the first 5 books are really good. I mean, it doesn't make sense. It want to continue, but that is basically the mindset.
That's why, like, whenever I was...
Or an anime. Anime is actually a great way to say that. Imagine Overlord ended on like the 4th episode, even though like they announced like 12 or whatever came out for the season, and they're just like, yeah, but it just didn't work out, so we're going to end it now. Like, how many people would actually give Overlord a shot other than the people who were watching it like anyways, but like after the fact of they announced it would be discontinued?
Was playing on the fresh servers, I didn't really go super hard. I leveled pretty fast, but I just pretty much leveled at my own pace. And
most people do. Most people aren't trying their best to like be the first like max level character on a realm. That's literally like hardcore players, which is the minority.
Went through it, had fun, and it was good.
Anyway, guys, that's going to end it there. Be sure to check out my second channel. I'm going to do some news updates and just basically cover the new Harry Potter game because I'm very, very interested in that.
That game looks so good. I honestly cannot wait. I'm not even into Harry Potter that much. Like, I've seen the movies, read some of the books, but I'm not like a huge fan. Like, I don't care what house people are in. Like, that game looks so good. Like, I cannot wait for that
game. Obviously not going to put that on the main channel. I'm going to...
So many games coming out that just look amazing. It's a good time for gaming, I think, in the next, 2 years.
Put it on the second channel, so be sure to check that out for loads of videos about the new Harry Potter game, Hogwarts Legacy.
So fucking annoying.
Anyway, my name is Manny. Until the next video. Ciao.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty important conversation. It brings up a lot of good points.
I think the conversation points he brings up are correct. I disagree with a lot of what he said, just because I think he's in a mind space of trying to relive a moment that's way gone by. Um, and I think that's just a his problem kind of thing, like something he has to work through. Like me, like I honestly played a little Classic WoW, but I mean I played it already. Like I still remember it. It's not like those memories are gone. Maybe if I forget, like I'll want to replay it because obviously it's like reliving it because I don't remember anymore. But like that's gone. Like those people I played with back when I originally played aren't there. I have no way to contact them. If I did, maybe play a bit more, just play with them. But they could be different people too. Like I know I'm pretty damn different compared to when I first played Classic WoW when it was just called WoW. So
here, and I think some of them are true. In general, I do think Vanilla WoW does have very much more an emphasis on the story. Or sorry,
story.
the world, I mean to say.
I was gonna say definitely not the story. Well, maybe not. Not really, to be honest. Like I'm trying to remember. Lore videos weren't that big for Classic WoW. That I can recall. Who knows? I could be wrong on that though. Maybe just I didn't really care about it.
So,
which is weird because I really like lore now. So
example of this is like in Vanilla WoW, the world is Azeroth and the Eastern Kingdoms.
Well, the planet is Azeroth, but that's not really like Eastern Kingdoms. Okay, well let's see what it says.
In Burning Crusade, it's Outland. In Wrath of the Lich King,
Northrend.
It's Northrend. That's it.
I guess the scope, they're much smaller. But that's also like an expansion thing. I think I see what he means though. Like you can't really compare the size to each other. But a lot of the land is like empty and on Azeroth. Like there's a lot of walking with like nothing in between. Especially in like the Barrens. Obviously there's like mobs and stuff, but like man, it's mostly empty, especially if you compare it to Outlands, you compare it to Northrend. Like they just compressed the same amount of content. No, that definitely had more content in Vanilla WoW. That's a good. What's the word I'm looking for? Points. That's a good point because it's like I'm thinking on it now, and yeah, like Vanilla WoW just had way more points of interest. I mean, they weren't like at the same quality level. Maybe that's what they gave up on. They gave up quantity for quality, but it's hard to say.
That's the only thing you do. And I do think the problem, though, is that whenever I think about like a lot of the open world encounters that I had in WoW, in Classic WoW, they were 99% world buff related.
Not me. Maybe because it's like I raided, yeah, but it wasn't like hardcore raiding at all. It was pretty casual, just because I tried hardcore raiding for a bit. I got into like the #1 guild on my server, raided for like 2 weeks, and I was just like, man, this is too much. Like they are taking this. It's like I'm a big gamer. Like don't get me wrong. Like I love video games, always playing them, but it's like I play them to have fun. Hardcore raiding to me has almost never been fun from the get go. So this is just too serious. It's like they make playing Dark Souls like people who play Dark Soul games. Like, oh yeah, you're casuals. It's because you're not doing no death runs. Like, and that's basically the like hardcore raiders, like really hardcore raiders, like the top end guilds of a server, are the same as those people who run Dark Souls, like on no death runs and stuff, or naked, or not getting hit. Like, I guess those are like the top, top. But you see what I'm saying? Like, it's just too much. Like, I wouldn't play Dark Souls in that capacity because to me, it's just not fun. It's too stressful. I don't know. Just like I'm not having fun anymore. So why am I doing it?
So how do you have something and make something compelling like world buffs without having it be meta defining?
Why do you have to have something compelling like that? Like, obviously, it should be incentives in a way, but why does it have to be? Like, how do I explain this? I don't think there was anything wrong with world buffs, to be honest. I just think it should have been. I'm trying to recall how they should do it. I think how WoW does it now, in a way, like if you tag it, you do some damage, you get the benefit of it. Doesn't matter if you did 1% damage, you still get some of it. I think that's how they should have done the world bosses. As long as you're tagging it, you don't have to be in a group. You just tag it, and everyone gets it. Like there's no fighting over it because everyone can get it, but still it's there for world events. Like everyone can be involved. Like how they're doing their event now in Warcraft for pre-release. Like that was actually a lot of fun. I got everything from it, so I just stopped because yeah, the incentive's gone now. So obviously having a incentive is good, but for me, like I geared out the characters that needed it, and I got the heirloom thing, which I don't even need. I got max characters, so it's kind of useless. But like the incentive doesn't have to be so crazy where you have to do it all the time. I think,
Like I feel like at a
and it doesn't have to be like so competitive. Like just let people have fun together.
certain point, maybe world buffs weren't a bad thing.
No.
And this is what I had said before. I don't really think that world buffs were bad. If you go back, you even watch like what I talked about with the season of mastery, is I thought world buffs made the raids fun.
I don't agree there, because that's like just in a general sense. Buffing makes the raid fun just because it's a little easier. So it'd be different if the world buffs did funny things, like on crit cause explosions or something silly, different. You know what I mean? Like they kind of changed up the gameplay. Then maybe they could make the raids funner, or they could make really a general gameplay funner. But just a normal, you deal more damage buff or you heal more, whatever the case may be. That's not really making the raids fun. You're just making the raids easier, which can be translated as fun if you weren't really having fun to begin with. So,
like being able to blow up flame gore or something like that, and
yeah, exactly what I was just saying. Like, if you're equating easy to fun, then yes. But at the same time, you don't need world buffs for that. So,
17 seconds. That's pretty.
like what I find fun a lot, and I really can't wait for Dragonflight for this, is getting max, but like pretty high item level, like obviously max level, but item level, and then doing old content solo. Like that to me is way more funner than doing raids. That's why I don't really do raids unless it's to get that item level up, and then I just do solo stuff.
Pretty cool. Just nerf them? No, because then it's not as fun. But
Yeah, but that's also like that logic is actually why borrowed powers I think came from. I think world buffs kind of evolved into the borrowed powers of today, and it's true that it definitely makes things funner when you're adding those borrowed powers. I think that's why they use it as like a main selling point for most of the expansions, like Azerite power, Legion power, or the artifact power, I should say, not Legion power. So that is fun though. It's like I think if they didn't make it as grindy as they did, um, or if they made it like interesting, like what was it, the Nazoth stuff, like that stuff. Bro, I didn't even play it much, and I really wish I did. I only got it like way late, unfortunately. But man, like stuff like that, when you're just changing up the gameplay, that's why tier sets are so cool. Is they change how you play your character a lot of times, and that's why just normal damage increasers just aren't as cool or as fun.
like you should. Here's what they should do with world buffs. If they ever do a season of mastery 2, they should make the world buff give you an item that goes in your inventory, and you can use the item, and it's unique, so you can't just stack.
So it's like a trinket. I think he just described a trinket that you don't equip, basically, or I don't know. Like in my opinion, I think instead, world buffs. What could they do? Maybe have it where they add you get an item that you can add to a piece of equipment that makes it into like a tier, like its own version of tier sets. It'd be even cooler if you could do it on a tier set item. Like it doesn't change the tier set; it just adds onto it, and that way you can kind of mix and match tiers. You know what I'm saying? Like, say they add more world bosses. Like, say there's like 10 world bosses, right? Each has their own tier combination. Like, you know, you get 3 pieces from them. You unlock the first one, or maybe 2, 4, 6 kind of thing. And you can put it on any piece of equipment. You can put it on rings, helmets. Like, it doesn't matter. Um, that way you can really kind of mix and match that kind of gameplay, because it's like, let's be fair, it's a classic WoW, it's a season. I really wish they didn't really care too much about balance. Obviously you want the classes to be balanced, because you don't want classes to be left out, but like, those kind of things don't really have to be balanced. Like, obviously if there's a tier set that's just like blowing the other ones out of the water, then maybe tone it down a bit, or maybe tone the other ones up, depending on why it's blowing it out of water, why it's so good. Because I really hate when they nerf something to the ground versus, you know, bringing everything kind of up to its level. Because it's like, why are those other ones bad? Are they just bad? Like, because they're bad? And it just happens that one is just, it's not OP, it's just good kind of thing. You know what I mean? So.
Up like 50 of them, so you have to continuously do it regularly. But you use one of them, and that's it. You don't get the Chrono Boon Displacer was shit.
He said 50? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, that's kind of reminds me of like the runes you get from Diablo 2. I don't know if people remember that, but you used to have these like runes in your inventory that used to do stuff. So funny. I remember hacking in Diablo 2, and I made one of my runes turn like everything around me into a chicken, just for fun. Um, so I'd go into like PvP servers and just run around, turn all the players into chickens. That was fun. Like, obviously, like, not, I couldn't do that now because hacking like isn't as easy as it was back in the day. But like, make stuff like stupid like that if you're gonna do something like this where you get a bunch of items.
Shit. It was a shit idea. It was not a shit idea. It was a better idea they've ever had, but it's still a shit idea. Kind of like Mojo's? Yeah. Exactly like Mojo's.
I see
So
what
let
you
me
mean.
explain.
Those interesting items.
So basically, you
like the
could only
Defiance.
hold certain types. Like the Chrono Boon, it took all of your current buffs. So you had to have every single.
Like the orb that changed you into like the opposite faction. Like stuff like that. I think is what he's talking about. Like interesting items. Which, to be fair, is cool, but I think having like it affecting like actual combat, I think, is where it's going to get tricky. Of course, my idea of the tier sets also affects that as well. But I mean, it goes both ways. Like, they could do his idea. It's a season, so if it doesn't work out, well, it doesn't work out. It's not like people are going to stop playing WoW. Like, let's be fair, if they played it after like some of the expansions that were like total, like Shadowlands and stuff like that, if they were like with the jailer. So
Buff at the same time and then store them, right? I'm pretty sure this is how it worked. That's annoying. You could buy multiple, release, and reuse. I don't remember exactly how it worked. I didn't know that you could do that. I just wish that I think that the best solution, this is all I want to see them do. I don't remember doing that, at least. All I want to see them do is just add in, make it a consumable item that gets looted to your inventory. Just do that, because world buffs make the raids better. I do genuinely think they make the raids better. I don't think that making fucking Ragnaros take 7 minutes and 150 gold worth of consumables makes the fight better. I don't think so.
it's kind of the same thing. The problem with consumables, well, it's like the duration and the fact you have to make them. So if you can just kill a boss and get the buff, like, it's just easier. Like, it's a way fewer steps, way less investment on trying to get it. So like, the barrier to entry on it is just much easier. So that's what makes it better, at least in my opinion. But like I said, I mean, there's plenty of things they could do with Season of Master, the seasons with Classic WoW, or even like if they use the other expansions like Outlands or Burning Crusade, I should say. Uh, yeah, I mean they don't have to just stick with what they have. And if you're hearing it in the background, this is why you don't smother a cat when they're babies. They become clingy as hell. And if you leave the room, they act as if they're being stabbed. Like, Jesus.
I think the fight sucks. All the fights suck. Let people get the buffs and blow up the bosses.
Yeah, that's what I said. If you find it fun, that's why I like going back and doing those old raids so I could just, like, freaking blow up those bosses by myself. I don't need a group. I mean, obviously, you can run with a group. It's even funner, especially if it's, like, not too far back in the expansions. But yeah.
Yeah, I think I watched so many speed runs back in the day with like classic WoW. Consumables grind was worse than world buffs. Yeah, they suck dick. Big dick. It's awful.
Alright, so that's that video. It was pretty interesting. Like, the conversation points, yeah, definitely, they're really good. In terms of, like, just talk, like, the conversation itself is actually really interesting, so. Alright, next video, I think this is by, yeah, Lazy Peon. So, just gonna react, will I be playing WoW Dragonflight? I would have to guess yes, for content, at the very least. Maybe interest, just to see how it's going, especially since there's not really anything releasing. Like, if Ash's Creation is releasing around the same time, that'd probably be a no, to be fair. But I think because there's nothing really else competing with it, like, there's nothing wrong with giving it a try. You know what I mean? You're not losing out on anything other than a bit of money. So.
Recently, I've found myself not really knowing what to play when it comes to MMOs.
I think a lot of people are falling into that. Like, I tried playing New World again, especially after that expansion, but I got bored pretty quickly.
Throughout the year, I've been playing a lot of New Worlds with the speculation that the game would
That was really cool. I really wish they make him into a world boss.
eventually become good, which is exactly what started
Sorry.
to happen. Unfortunately, it turns out I probably would have been better off quitting the game along with everyone else. As with the recent release of Fresh Start servers,
Oh yeah, I didn't do that. Just because I leveled all my weapons and stuff. It's like, man, I really, really, really do not want to do all that again. I mean, I guess I could have, but it just felt weird. I don't know. I mean, maybe I really should have, just to get the experience of doing that new server thing, but whatever.
all non-Fresh Start servers are basically dying. Old characters will never be allowed to transfer to fresh servers either.
That makes sense. I don't know about never. Like, they should have a cap on it, like 6 months or something, like 3 months, whatever it may be. Just because after that point, it doesn't really matter.
So I don't really know what to do with that game. I've got this character with maxed out expertise and near maxed professions.
Yep, that's what I was talking about just now. Like, I don't want to do everything again. Expertise I don't have maxed out, but I don't really care, if I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I didn't even play the new dungeons, if there are any. I'm pretty sure there are, but I don't know, I just kind of got bored.
That's stuck on a dying server.
I think it's because I was trying to level Blunderbuss and the Greatsword. Greatsword was fun. That was really fun. But man, I hate the Blunderbuss. That thing is garbage for leveling.
And I feel like I've invested too much time into it to start again. How about other MMOs? Well, Lost Ark was a game that I was rather addicted to at the start of the year.
I think a lot of people were. Like, for me, I quit once I realized, like, it's all about RNG, upgrading your gear. Not when I realized, but, like, when you experience it. It's like, man, you play for an hour or whatever, you get your materials, you do the upgrade, and it fails. It's like, okay, well, I just wasted that hour.
However, I quickly got bored of the daily and weekly grinds and
Yep.
realised that the most time efficient way to play Lost Ark is to not play the game, wait for the Western version to be caught up with the Korean version, then pay to win once honing materials are cheap and the crystal to gold exchange rate is.
I was gonna more say because they'll add more things, like especially events and stuff. Like if you wait for events with a lot of these types of games, that's how you can catch up. Like don't play normally, wait for an event of some kind. So a lot of the events are just like, yeah, like more dailies are available for you to get a bunch more stuff. So
High. Guild Wars 2, it's a great MMO that I love to play on and off for PvP and Fashion Wars, but sometimes I want vertical progression which the game lacks.
that's definitely true. I really wish Guild Wars did a bit more verticality. Um, Maybe from expansion to expansion. Like I can understand like max level, like that's kind of it. Like dungeon rating gear maybe be about the same, but I don't know. Like I also don't really like the way the skills work in Guild Wars. It just doesn't feel as good to me. Like look at that. Like you see things on the ground, like that's bad stuff, but it's not cool looking. It's just circles of colors. So
How about Albion Online and RuneScape? I really like both of these MMOs.
I tried playing these. Um, I don't know. I couldn't make it past that. Like I think within the day, I was just like, man, the time investment for this is going to be insane. Do I really want to do that? And I didn't. I'll be honest, because there's other games I can play. So
But the fact that you can just buy gold in-game makes half of the game's systems feel irrelevant. How am I going to care about making 1 mil an hour from gathering and crafting if I can just buy 10 mil for $10?
um, I think that's a poor excuse because it's like you can do that with almost any game, literally any game, even if it's not in the like the game itself. Buying gold, you can there's sites out there. It's not even hard. You just put the game and then you put the currency. WoW gold, you know, Final Fantasy, maybe Gil, whatever it is. But like it's a joke. Like you anyone who's relatively familiar with the internet can find sites to buy gold or whatever the currency is. So you saying, "Oh, how am I going to feel invested?" It's like, then how do you feel invested in any MMO? Like, period.
When games put a direct monetary value on gold in-game, they make me feel like I'm working for the equivalent of $1 per hour by actually playing the game.
Oh, I see what he's saying. Okay, so it's putting a price on your time. That's fair. I think that is pretty true. Um, because WoW does that as well. A few games do that. Like where say Warcraft, I think it's like 20,000 you make for $20 in the retail. I could be wrong. I don't know if it's different server by server. But I remember when I made like 1,000 gold, like after grinding a bit. Took me like an hour, which 1,000 gold for an hour I thought was okay. It's not like I was like really trying. I was just like doing stuff normally. And then you see that token get 20,000 for $20, and it's like, well, shit. I just I just made $1 in an hour. Like, it it takes you out of it, especially if you know if you have a job and you make money. So it's like, as a kid, maybe like before you get a job, it doesn't really matter. Like, it's not mentally in your head. Like, okay, well, I made $1 an hour. That's kind of cool. But when you're an adult, it's like, well, I could have just worked overtime. It got myself, 100,000 gold for what I just made 1,000 gold. Like, depending on your job, of course. But yeah, I definitely see what he means. I didn't even think about that. That's actually great insight.
And earning gold legitimately. The only way I could not have that feeling with RuneScape would be if I made an Iron Man, which I might do at some point. What about Final Fantasy XIV? I actually feel like I would probably enjoy this game a lot if I got to endgame so I could raid and have fun with the glamour system.
Whoa, you didn't even get to the end? Like, that always like surprises me with some of these, like Asmon too. Like, how do you play in an MMO? Kind of get started, at least get pretty into it, like hitting halfway there, and just stop playing. Like, I can't really do that. I mean, maybe take a little break, but like these people take months, like breaks. I don't know.
But I've realised that I just don't care about story in MMOs at all.
You don't have to care about Final Fantasy story, dude. Like I don't know. I think that's kind of a dumb excuse. Don't get me wrong, Final Fantasy focuses on the story a lot, but you don't have to do it. Like you can skip most of it, from what I understand. Heck, you can pay to skip it if you really, really hate it. But at the same time, like, is that if you're an MMO player, you're used to like being forced through a story and skipping it, like just doing whatever you can to skip it. You know, just hitting enter, 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 going through the dialogue, like whatever. Obviously, there are some unskippable parts, but most of the time it's a cutscene, so it's not that big of a deal, in my opinion. Because cutscenes are fine. Like I don't mind unskippable cutscenes if it's like the first time you're through it. Any more than that's a bit much. But after, like it's you're just watching a movie. Like I don't know. It's maybe because I really don't like when people assume like, oh, Final Fantasy, like you're gonna have to love the story to like the game. It's not true. Like I think the story's okay, which I know like maybe I'll get crucified for that, but it's like I was never blown away by Final Fantasy's story. Like I really like the cutscenes. I like the big fights, um, and that's about it. Like I read novels and stuff, so it's like if I want a good story, there's way better ones. Not way better, I shouldn't say it like that, but it's like I don't need to play games to get a good story. Like if I want a good story, there's plenty of books I can read. So I don't know. I think that's like you don't really know why then you don't like the game. You're just assuming it's for the story because you think I'm not a person who cares about the story, therefore this is why I don't like this game.
As much as I've tried to play the game in my spare time and read everything, I
Yeah, dude, why are you reading everything? You don't need to do that.
personally don't play MMOs to read a lot of text, so I'll sub to Final Fantasy XIV, play it how everyone tells me I should play it, get bored.
Oh my god, dude, why would you do that? Well, who plays? You're not gonna have. Oh my god, these cats, man. 1 second, Jesus. I literally turn around and they're all quiet again. Like, what the heck? Alright. What was I saying? Oh, playing an MMO, just play it your way. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, okay, yeah, the story of Final Fantasy is good. Doesn't matter. Because that is not the only thing in the game. It'd be different if this was a text based game where literally you couldn't do anything but text. Like, you have to read the text, you have to respond to the text. But it's not. There's PvP, there's dungeon grinding. I love dungeon grinding in Final Fantasy because of the trust system. I don't have to get people. I don't have to like pray. Please let this tank know how to taunt and put on his things. I don't have to pray like, okay, is the tank gonna pull too much for the healer to handle, and the healer's not gonna say anything and just leave? Like, there's none of that. You just play how you want to play it. You pull how many you think your AI companions can pull, like handle, and if you mess up, well, it was on you. You know, can't blame anyone but yourself. So it's like I honestly have barely done any of the side quests in Final Fantasy. Some of the more important ones, like the blue ones, I think I've done a few. Just because a lot of times it will take you to like a new area. But that's about it. Like I don't know. I think anyone who thinks they have to play a game in a certain way, they're not going to have fun in that game. Even if it's something they normally would have fun with, you're being told what to do, which no one likes. So
After 30 minutes and unsub. I think at some point I'm just going to boost to endgame and enjoy it on my own terms.
um I know I just said that. I don't think you should boost only because like boosting in most MMOs is not a good idea. And I'm not talking about the story. I'm just talking about your connection to the character, which is kind of important in an MMO, I would say, in any RPG. Um, I think just playing through it your way, skipping whatever. Like, and if you need to level, don't do side quests. Just do a dungeon. Um, oh, especially if you unlock the You know what really upset me with Final Fantasy? When I found out that the squadrons, they discontinued that. When I was first leveling and I found the squadron system, Dude, I fell in love with that thing. I had so much fun with that. I leveled all my people that way. After that, and then they replaced it with the trust system, which I kind of understand, but at the same time, I really wish instead of that, they would have just kept the squadrons and then had it where you can add those characters from the trust system into your squad normally, like how you do. But like, I really like the fact that you can make your own squad, man. Like that was so cool. Guild Wars also, like I really like their mercenary system. Like man, where you get to use your own characters as mercenaries. So freaking cool. I hate that you had to pay a little bit more if you wanted like a full squad. But it's whatever. But man, like there's so many. I don't know. Like maybe I'm just older. I just don't like playing with people too much now. I think it's more my patience. Like I don't, which is weird because I have a lot of patience normally. But like in the video games, I'm just like, okay, I don't want to wait for a group, and I don't want to heal or tank. So yeah, I think that goes back to that whole like the Holy Trinity to me just isn't that good anymore.
I love MMOs that I can level up in whilst watching streams on my other monitor, with
You can definitely do that with Final Fantasy, 100%.
story being such a massive part of Final Fantasy.
It's not massive. It's it's glaring. I would say it's not huge, but it is like bright, so it's hard to look away. But it's definitely not like the biggest part of the game. At least from my experience, like I rushed through the story a lot for at least like a lot of the text parts. I watched all the cutscenes, but like I do that with most games. So
These leveling, I can't really do this, so it's not for me personally, although I know many people love the story and leveling in this game.
yeah, dude, you really gotta stop focusing on the story. Skip what you want to skip. If it's a cutscene, guess what? You don't even have to look at that. Look at your other screen on Netflix.
Elder Scrolls Online, there's a lot I like about ESO, but I don't vibe with the combat or
I was gonna say the combat feels really floaty in ESO, at least to me. Like I could never, like I played it to max level, did a few dungeons, and I was always waiting to feel powerful. It never really came, so I just couldn't play anymore.
character aesthetics for it to be a main MMO for me. The way I've played
PvP was really fun. I really liked the PvP in ESO. I just think that there's some builds that are just way better than others to the point that it's you have no chance if you particularly like how a build feels. Like some builds will just delete you.
ESO in the past was somewhat similar to Guild Wars 2, map completion, PvP, and collecting cool gear. In the end, I prefer
Map completion, I think they did really well in ESO. Like compared to the other MMOs on the market. Like it's one of the few MMOs where I really wanted to explore everything.
Guild Wars 2 for all of these things. Black Desert Online and Arcade. Yeah, let's not get into those. World of Warcraft.
Black Desert. You know what? I never got into that. Like I literally played less than an hour before quitting. Because they come out of the gate with that RNG crap. So it's like I forget what class I even played. It was like a samurai type class. The combat is actually really good, of course. Everyone knows that. But it's literally the only thing the game has going for it. Maybe I'll get into it again after if I get bored Dragonflight and Ashes isn't out yet. So it's like, I don't know. Because I feel like it's an okay game to just grind and not care about stuff. As long as you're not too focused on getting gear. Like, but that's hard. So who knows if it's even worth it.
I haven't played through a full WoW expansion since Mists of Pandaria and Warlords of Draenor.
And yeah, it's really sorry about that meowing. Seriously, it's annoying to me too.
Each expansion since then, I've played less and less. I played through about 50% of Legion. I subbed to be.
Really? I thought Legion was actually really fun, like almost throughout the whole thing. Like I started a little later, just because I didn't trust it. Like I was just like, man, this is gonna be another crapshoot. But then, like a month or two in, my friends who were still playing it just told me about it. I was just like, all right, I'll give it another shot. Had a blast. Like I played it till I ran out of stuff to do. I think I didn't really raid though. I'll be honest. Raided a little, but I'm just not really into raiding anymore.
BFA for about one patch, and Shadowlands I really didn't like the theme, so I quit shortly after getting to max level.
The theme? I thought the theme was okay. Like you're in the afterlife, there's different basically levels of hell in a way. I thought the theme was okay. But I guess that's a personal taste. My problem was that the way they treated lore characters was like one of the bigger gripes. Because this was like a heavy, heavy lore expansion, I believe. At least that's kind of what it felt like. And I don't know. It's not. I don't really care too much about lore, but at the same time, it's they did it to characters that obviously you have some kind of attachment if you've been playing WoW for quite a while. So it's like if they were new characters that they did the things they did. So it's like I wouldn't bother me because I don't give a shit about the new characters. Um, because I don't really have history with them. So it's like, yeah, who cares? Like this guy, who is he? Some robot dude? I don't know. Could be an NPC, and like the little owls. Like I wouldn't even care. I think they're little like what are they treated like slaves? Yeah, I doesn't bother me. But if they did that to like freaking gnomes or something like that, okay, it's gonna be bothering me a little, just because I'm more like I'm more attached to the gnome as a whole, just because I've been playing the game. But I think with Shadowlands, it was like disappointment after disappointment. I think is what got me. Like Torghast, like I was expecting just something just fun, but they made it into a Choregast, which everyone knows about. But at the same time, it's like I don't mind that it's a chore, exactly. But why couldn't you just focused on the fun part of it? Like, still keep the rewards, whatever, but just make it fun. That way, if you did have to do it, I mean, it's eventually it'll become unfun, right? So I guess that makes sense. I think the chore part, like, make it a daily that isn't 100% necessary. I guess would have been the best way to do it. Like maybe give gold or whatever. I, I also like. I think there was like a few too many systems in Shadowlands. Like I kind of felt a bit overwhelmed. I'm just like, man, I gotta get into this. I gotta get into that. Mythic pluses and stuff. I'm just like, I'm not really looking into like the hardcore, like hard gameplay. I guess. I don't know if that's even the right word. But, like group hard gameplay. I don't mind single player stuff. Like I did the tower. Um, I forget what it was exactly called. But I did that on like almost all my characters. Like it was just so much fun.
For the past few years, the thing I hated the most about WoW was that each expansion would have some kind of system that would make playing alt classes and specs a pain in the ass.
100%. Getting a new main to the same level as your actual main took way too long. I think a lot of MMOs run into that problem because it makes like the because even though you're playing the same game, if you're playing a whole different class, like it feels like you're playing a whole new game. Like that's I love playing alts, but when playing an alt is a pain in the butt, like there are systems in the game that that don't really help with that progression that you've already done on something that's annoying and grindy. Like that's when it gets like stupid.
Mandatory legendaries, artifact power, Azerite, Renown, basically borrowed power that would become irrelevant in the next expansion.
That's not really a problem if they made the borrowed power account wide to a degree, or at least had systems in play. Like, for example, say renown, like have it where you get triple renown or whatever amount of like more renown, whatever the developers think is a fair amount, depending on up until your own renown level on your main character, or you start out at half of what your main character is. Um, like just systems in play that help it to where you don't have to do the same crap you sludge through on the first one. Obviously, if it's like fun stuff, people don't really mind, like doing dungeons, getting gear to go to the raids for from those dungeons. But borrow the power because they made it like pretty grindy and made it really difficult to level ults or bring up your ults to about the same level as your main.
As someone who enjoys playing multiple classes and specs, I've wanted WoW to become alt friendly for a long time.
Oh yeah, definitely. Um, there are games that do it much better than others, but WoW man, it was rough playing alts for a while, other than just the leveling itself.
And apparently with the new expansion Dragonflight, this actually seems to be the case. There's a lot I've always enjoyed about WoW.
Oh yeah, like after a lot of things I heard about Dragonflight, I pre-ordered it, played it, leveled all the classes that I needed to level because I only had like maybe 2 that were the current max level for Shadowlands. Um, but thanks to the buffs that they give and the fact that they squashed like the leveling, like it's just so much easier to level. Like I literally leveled like every class to the max level. I almost wish Invoker you started at a lower level, but you start at max, so it's whatever.
The combat feels smooth, the PvP is fun, the raids are great, and I love the
Yeah, this event it's one of the best events WoW has ever done in its entire history. I could be wrong, but like man, I really like this event. I wish they would do more.
transmog system. If Blizzard starts making the game more alt-friendly with more account-wide progression, then I'd probably stay subbed for a lot longer. So yes, we've gone full circle. After 7 years since I created my first ever first impressions video of
Wildstar, that was a good game.
me looking for an alternative to WoW, transitioning the YouTube channel purely from covering WoW to being a general MMO channel, we're
That white background, I don't know how people do that.
still here looking at the new expansion like the distracted boyfriend meme. So grab your Thunder Fury
True.
Blessed Blade of the Windseeker. Today we're back in Azeroth, seeing what's new, preparing for Dragonflight, and choosing a class to main for the expansion. As of recording this video, it's the World of Warcraft Dragonflight pre-patch, which means it's time for me to choose a main class or main classes.
I haven't chosen my main yet, I'll be honest. I'm thinking Monk, just because I've never had it as my main, and they're actually, from what I've been playing, like actually really OP. So it's like, I think the reason it never became my main is because I had it as a panda. It turns out I hate pandas. I know, like, at least the aesthetics in the Warcraft, oh my god, they're ugly.
What the fudge is wrong with you?
So I just deleted it and made a new one with the Zandalari troll. So I'm just like, I've been having a lot of fun with that.
He hates pandas.
For this expansion. So the way I typically approach this is I whip out a Word document and I write down my requirements as well as every class in.
What the heck? Who does this? That's weird. Like, it's almost like a job interview. Like, this guy's about to pick his whole career off of this. Like, what the heck? Like, the classes have to send in resumes, and it's like, do you meet my required education level, amount of years worked? Like, I don't know. That's kind of crazy. Like, I just play the classes, and then whichever one I had the most fun with, I kind of go with. So
in the game. Main requirement, ping friendly. This basically rules out every single melee class in the game.
He lives like, I forget where he lives, but it's not in the US or the UK, so his ping is like really bad.
Which means I'm going to be left with ranged DPS or healer. So realistically, I'm going to be maining a healer for PvE content such as Mythic Plus and raids.
I think that's, I don't know, I feel like that's going to make you not want to play it long term. If you're forcing yourself to do something you don't really want to do, but who knows, maybe he likes healing. From what I've seen in content, he usually picks up mage though, so not really haven't seen him really pick healers.
With a strong ranged DPS spec for
okay, that makes sense.
Open worlds.
So you're looking at probably priest, shaman maybe. That's about it, right? Am I forgetting a few? Let's see. Druid. Oh, I forgot about Druid. Oh, I hate Druids, that's why.
Solo content. Druid is probably top of the list at the moment.
Whoa. You know what? Healing with Druid actually was pretty fun. I just didn't like Feral or Balance. So, hadn't tried tanking with them. So maybe that would be good.
But a class that I really want to check out is the brand new Evoker class, which has just been added to the game.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, haven't played it too much just because I couldn't level with it. I'm waiting for Dragonflight, and I'll probably probably level my Evoker first, just to see how it plays, and depending on like that will determine if I make it my main or Monk. I'm thinking Monk though, to be honest. I like melee classes more than I do ranged most of the time. I really like the Warlock though. Man, Warlock Demonology is so much fun now.
So let's create one and see if it's any fun. Body 1 or body 2. I guess those are like male and female options, but you can't really tell the difference.
I think he's missing the human in the background, but yeah, I was pretty disappointed with the dragon form they give you.
As a dragon, I feel like I should just be as chunky as possible.
Yeah, I did the same, but then like when you get into the game and you see actual like big dragons, you're just like, man, I look really sad next to them. So it's like I can't imagine what the skinny ones look like next to them.
Chest spikes, yes.
Look like a
there's
child,
actually
maybe.
a lot of customization options for this race. We are
surprisingly amount of customization. I was really like impressed. Like I said though, like I really wish they could make you bigger, but it's whatever.
And spiky dragon. Our ears consist of spikes. How are we supposed to hear out of a spike? If I'm gonna be a dragon, realistically, I'd rather be a naked dragon.
That's funny. His dragon actually is a little similar to mine, but he has more like green. Mine was mostly like black and red. I was going for like a almost Deathwing kind of thing.
Stitch form. Let's just call her Flyby. Yeah, that's a really clever name. Let's go with that. As a new hero class, we start at level 58.
Cool
Let's
name.
check out the starting experience. Drakthir intro cutscene. Looks like I'm a statue. I'm looking forward to this. A new ranged DPS class, as well as a healer class. Like, this is like the perfect...
This is like a 2-in-1 video. While I play Dragonflight and going through the tutorial of what of the Invoker.
Class for me. It's the two play styles that I love. Double press spacebar, your character like...
Yeah, it's like Demon Hunter.
Glides. That feels good. Feels even better than the Demon Hunter double.
It does. I think it's because it pops you up a bit more. I could be wrong though.
Jump. Living Flames. This is my number 1 ability.
Going through this was pretty boring. You have like very, very few skills. I don't know if that changes. Like I said, I did this tutorial part of it, or this opening. And that's about all I've done on the Evoker.
Number 2 ability is an instant cast. Disintegrate. It's like a channeled ability, it seems. Another cutscene. It's an angry looking dragon. Living Flame. When targeting an enemy deals damage, but when targeting an ally it heals.
That's really cool, and I think that's what I wish they would do more. Change the skills up to kind of match that, so that they can really cut back on that Holy Trinity.
That's really cool. Leave the temple out.
I mean, WoW kind of took care of it really well because you can have the dual spec, you can switch between specs without losing anything. But I still think that being a DPS role, but still being able to heal, just so you don't have to have a healer, is the better option.
Into this big open landscape. That looks cool. Giant structure in the distance. Dragons in the sky. Quite a sight to behold, really.
This place was pretty boring. Like, I don't know. This part of the opening was not my favorite.
I'm really excited to explore the environment of the Dragon Isles. Everything about this
other than the actual flying.
Expansion seems a lot less alien than the previous expansion, Shadowlands. There was something about Shadowlands that I just couldn't connect with. Just being in the Shadow Realm or something where everything was super weird. It wasn't very grounded. It felt borderline sci-fi in places. Fire breath. Let's try it out.
I mean, to be fair, almost any theme that has the gnomes involved feels the same. Like steampunk.
Yo, that's cool. That's like an action combat ability. This reminds me of Spyro the Dragon.
This, I think they really did a good job. Kudos to them for like getting the main idea from Guild Wars. Like, that was one of the best parts about Guild Wars, was the flying. So I think this one actually does a little bit better than Guild Wars. Like, it's been a while since I played Guild Wars, so I could be like not remembering things right, but I felt like this was a little bit better.
We go in again, so we go up here and then we go down here.
I'm just like probably making most MMO communities mad, like Final Fantasy, because I said the story wasn't the best. Well, maybe among MMOs definitely, but I wasn't like the biggest fan of it. And now Guild Wars is like, oh yeah, I don't think your mount system is like the best. which it is. But like the feel of WoW's flying, I think, just feels a little bit better than Guild Wars.
Yeah. This is fun. I like this. 50% of the players this expansion are going to be dragged there. Yes, they may have yoinked it straight out of.
I really wish they will give dragon wings to other classes. Like maybe have it like a glider kind of thing. Um, that does basically the exact same thing. Like the feeling is the exact same, but obviously maybe it looks a little different.
Of Guild Wars 2. But that doesn't make it less cool. WoW's yoinked a lot of things from Guild Wars 2. Cute little thing on my character's back just clipping through my neck. When a rat and a dragon become friends, it's not a rat. It's a baby walrus. I need to learn to identify my animals a bit better. Healing ability. Okay, that seems good. League of Legends and Dota 2 need a button like this. Consume to reduce toxicity by a large amount. Hover. Increases my movement speed. It makes me do a bit of a swoop. It launches me. And I can use my abilities whilst moving. New ability, Deep Breath. This seems like another skill shot type ability. And
yeah, that was actually really like cool skill they added to the game. I think the other classes should get something similar if they can make it like that.
it can extend really far.
Yep. Super cool.
That's cool. Reposition, pop some big AoE.
Oh, that's always fun.
Nice, that hits hard. Is that a giant Tauren? Kurog Grim Totem. What specialization will you choose, Devastation or Preservation? I've heard really good things about Preservation, so I want to try that one.
I haven't tried Preservation. I went Devastation. I will have to try Preservation.
Rathion's trying to stop the ritual. He's trying to summon something evil. And Rathion has failed.
That made me laugh. I'm like, really? A big rock took him out?
Mate, you just got hit around the mouth with a bit of rock. You didn't have to fall to the ground that hard. That's a big...
Exactly, that's what I thought too. I was just like, it's a rock. It wasn't like something it wasn't like pure energy or anything like that.
Big dragon. So she's let him go to deliver a message. And as you can see by the weather...
I thought that was pretty stupid. Like, obviously, it would suck to kill Rathian off, but I think what they should have had it done was, like, her try to kill Rathian, but then that other dragon comes in and helps him a bit, and they both barely get away or something like that. Like, it didn't make sense to me that she would just let him go, because it's like, she has some serious beef with freaking his, like, sire, or even though it's not, I don't think it's, like, his direct dad, but with Deathwing, so it's like, you would think she'd at least, like, take his legs or something like that, like, cripple him, like, beat him up. Maybe not outright kill him because she wants to see him, like, suffer, but, like, it didn't make sense that she was just like, yeah, go, just watch.
It's closely resembling England right now. Rathion's laying on the floor again. The pain. Mate, nothing really happens to you, Rathion. There's not that much pain, come on. So I guess Razageth is going to be the big bad for the start of this expansion. Big dragon army casually rocking up at the gates of Stormwind. I actually didn't want to play as Alliance, I wanted to play as Horde. Did I fuck that up during character creation? As much as I think the Evoke is a really cool class so far, I don't think I'm going to end up maining it because, one, I think I'm going to get sick of looking like a dragon all the time in combat.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Because I'm someone that kind of cares a lot about transmog and having cool armor on. Additionally, I can see these held channel abilities being a bit of a nightmare with my ping. I can already feel when I let go, there's like a massive delay for those abilities. There's also a few channeled abilities as well, so I don't know if this is going to be the ideal class for me. So it's a few days later, and so far Druid is top of the list. I've been enjoying playing Balance as the ranged DPS spec.
Really? Man, Balance was just so boring to me. I don't know.
I really love Resto, and Feral and Guardian both feel pretty cool as well. So far my list is looking like this. I'm actually just going to put Evoker on the no list. The more I played Evoker, the more I realised that this could be the most fun class ever. It doesn't matter because I'm an ugly dragon creature. Let's try Holy Paladin. Something I absolutely love that Blizzard have done with WoW recently is add this edit mode. So I've made my, like, perfect...
It's good, but I know it broke some add-ons that basically were better versions of it.
UI, lined everything up, and this is all in...
Like, I had so many issues with this when I came back, and I downloaded the add-ons again. Like a lot of them were like I had to disable that and reload the UI to continue to play.
Games, so I no longer have to install add-ons to make a nice looking UI. I'm someone that likes to use as few add-ons as possible.
I don't really care. I mean, I'll try to use as few as possible, but at the same time, like, it doesn't bother me because it's so easy to install add-ons in WoW compared to other MMOs. Like, it's just WoW really has that nailed down.
So the fact that there's now an edit mode in-game, absolutely fantastic. Another thing that's new with Dragonflight is the new talent tree system, which
I had a lot of fun with this. So much fun. Like, I really like this new talent tree.
I definitely prefer to the old system. Most people are just going to search up an optimal build, but once you become...
There's nothing wrong with that, because let's be fair, there are people, though, who love checking out the add-ons, trying different builds. And there should be options for both. Like, you have the people who don't really care and just want to go with the most optimal route, while other ones who just want to tinker, try things out, see what they find funner. So, I think this is the best of both worlds. The fact that you can, like in the bottom left-hand side, like if you have a build you like, you download that build, and it just auto-specs you into it.
I'm really good at your class and you understand every aspect of every ability, you can kind of use this talent tree to just change things to fit your playstyle more.
Exactly, yep.
Testing out the Holy Paladin. I like Holy Paladin. I don't think I would main it over a Resto Druid though. I feel like with...
That's definitely true. I think Resto Druid like nails it, like out of the park. I healed with all classes while I was leveling just to kind of get a feel for them, and Resto just felt great. Like it's just chill, but still impactful. So I think they did an awesome job with Resto Druid. I think Priest also was pretty good. Paladin was one of my least favorite ones. Not that it was bad, it just wasn't as good, I think.
Resto, because you're just kind of ramping up your heals and you've got constant heal over time, it's really hard to mess up. Dude, you're standing in all of the shit. What are you doing? Tank! You might actually be AFK. Mate. Big heals. Fuck. Combat res. Yeah, he's AFK, isn't he? This is a fun healer. It can handle quite a lot. The more that I'm playing and thinking...
You know what? I did heal with him a little early on. I didn't really heal with him towards the later levels, so I might have to go back and play that, because I saw some abilities he was using I did not have access to, and I think going back would be a good idea. I think Ret was pretty cool. Like, it may not be the most, like, heavy hitter, but it was actually fun to play. So, I think Paladin, like, probably be Monk, Warlock, and then maybe Paladin. I don't know.
Thinking about other classes and races, the more I'm just certain that I want to main Druid this expansion. I'm going to main a Druid.
I think what I don't like about Druids is that you can't, like, the gear and stuff doesn't really affect how you look. Maybe it, like, I know you can do transmog stuff with it now, but like I still wish, I mean that's why I like the Druid healer. Like, you're just not a tree anymore, like at all times. It's like 30 seconds, I think.
Alt number 1 will be Shaman, alt number 2 will be Paladin, and then Mage or Warlock for alt number 3 or 4.
I really liked Mage at first, but I got pretty bored with them towards the end after getting them to max level. I don't know. I don't know if I'll be playing them.
I'm not sure which order I'm going to do those in. Next problem.
Warlock, though. Warlock is just so cool. Like, each class feels very, very different. I don't know if it's because it's OP, but like demonology is like so much fun. Like having an army of demons when you summon that gate and you just like start popping everything. Like, it feels like you just brought a raid with you.
To overcome. Basically all of the good players play Horde. And after trying to do Battlegrounds as Alliance, I can see why. Because this week I haven't won a single BG as Alliance.
Oh man, that's rough. That sucks.
Horde have been stomping every single game. So let's move to the most highly populated Horde dominated server. Stormscale. High Mountain Tauren unlocked. I could go Zandalari Troll if I wanted to. Like, what's cooler? We'll go High...
I think Zandalari Troll, like, is really cool. Like, I don't know if anyone knows, but they're like racial ability with praying to one of the Loa. Like, I thought that was like really interesting.
Mountain Tauren if I don't like it. I'll race change to Troll. So after an extra day of testing, I think I'm ready for Dragonflight. The Druid is going to be my main.
You know, it's funny, if I could remake my character, I would definitely make him the High Mountain Druid. I might still, I don't know. The thing is, I don't really like. Well, we'll see.
Although, after playing High Mountain Tauren for a while, I don't like how transmogs look on Tauren, so I'm going to have to change race.
Yeah, but you're a druid. You don't really have to worry too much about transmog other than when you're in healing mode.
Second ult is the Shaman. I love every single spec of the Shaman.
Yes, and they're still changing some things with Shaman, like they just made the Lava Burst like actually viable. So I started when I was leveling my Shaman, started at Elemental, wasn't a big fan, went to Enhancement. It was a lot more funner. Healing was meh, honestly. It was okay. Wasn't as interactive as the other ones. But I love the Shaman aesthetic.
Enhancement and Elemental all just feel really good, especially Enhancement. Warlock is my third favorite class. I really love Demonology. That
I knew it. Oh my god, it feels so cool now.
one feels the best. Next would be Affliction, and then I didn't really like Destruction
I agree. The Destruction was just like a bootleg mage.
so much. Fourth priority is the Paladin. I enjoyed the Holy and Protection spec. And for the Mage, I didn't really enjoy any of the specs. Fire was okay.
I felt the same. I think Fire was like the only one I really enjoyed of the three. Frost. Man, I don't know what they did with Frost. That used to be my favorite spec, but it's just I'm not a fan with it. And I think why Fire is so good is because you get those freaking Pyro procs. Even though Pyro isn't as good as he used to be, it's still fun getting instant Pyros.
But something about Frost just feels kind of lackluster.
Yes, I think it might be the damage. Like before with Frost, like you'd have to do a bit of a building, freezing them and stuff. But man, you could get those freaking crazy burst outs. You just had like low damage in between of those bursts. Like I wish they didn't change that. I guess it maybe makes sense, but man.
I think it's the audio-visual feedback from abilities. I didn't really like Arcane either. Fire was the only one I kind of liked. So yeah, my original WoW class, the Mage, demoted to priority number 5. A quick look at my choosing a class document. Requirements were ping friendly, range DPS with a healer option. We went with the Druid, Shaman alt number 2, Paladin, Warlock, Mage. I wrote some notes about each of the classes.
I would say ping seems to be like his biggest issue. At least that's what it seems like. Like he has this like chart here, but at the same time you don't really need a chart. You just need to keep in mind ping friendly.
Priest is probably a class that I need to try. I've never really liked the aesthetic.
I'm surprised he didn't try Priest. I've always liked Priest. I like how like the shadow talent kind of or spec. I don't know. I think they're obviously I think Shadow isn't as good as like Affliction Warlock, but at the same time it feels different enough, or at least to me. It's almost like Destro and Affliction had a baby, and that's Shadow Priest.
Sick of Shadow Priest, but if it's fun to play, then that's a ranged DPS with 2 healer options, so I think I need to try Priest. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Let me know in the comments below.
That was a good video. Definitely was like a 2-in-1 or maybe even 3-in-1. Because it's like, will I play Dragonflight, play through the Invoker tutorial area, and what class will I be maining in Dragonflight? So that was very interesting. A lot of things he was talking about, and I agree with a lot of it. Yeah, that's gotta suck with the ping, man. I don't know. Like, I don't know where he lives, but I'm assuming it's like beautiful and maybe cheap. So, you know, cons and pros, I guess. But man, I don't know if I could do that. All right. So next video we got. Oh, this one I kind of want to leave for last because it's the Preach video, which is I watched very few of it because I didn't even know it was. I just happened to catch it while he was premiering it. But man, like some of the things I saw in here was like really interesting. Like, I don't know if Preach is gonna get mad for reacting to it, but it's like, man, I really want to like react to that. But we'll watch some of the shorter ones first. Let's see here. How Gear for Gold transformed WoW Classic forever. Do I agree with that just off of before watching the video. Changed it forever. Changed it. I would agree. Yeah, but I think it was inevitable. Like, to be honest, whether it was gear for gold or gold for raids, like it was inevitable that you'd get to a point where people were so geared out, like they're basically done with the game, that they can do things that would take advantage of those who did not or are not at that level by helping them for monetary gain, whether that monetary is digital or real life. So,
How gear for gold transformed raiding forever. This is obviously something I have a lot of opinions on.
Whether it's the small green
yeah, I think Asmund said he did that a lot. My guild really didn't do that. We did it, I think, a little bit, especially during ZG, but that's about it.
satchel you found off your first kobold, that pair of common quality shoulders that dropped in the barrens, or seeing an epic PoE drop. Loot in World of Warcraft has always been one of the things that make it exciting, all the way from the start of your journey right to the end game and raiding. In vanilla back in the day, getting your first epic was like a rite of passage. Even if you did
getting your first epic, I don't know about rite of passage, but it definitely was a memorable event. Or getting your full tier set as well, like, to me was even more important, like a much bigger event. I think the first epic, depending on what epic you got, I think the first epic weapon is more like the rite of passage he's talking about.
Did manage to see inside a piece of raiding content, the chance you were actually going to be awarded an item among your 39 other raiders wasn't all that high.
Yeah, that sucked. Like, not gonna lie.
In TBC, you could reliably expect to get epics from 5-man heroics, but they were difficult. But at least you had badges, so you can eventually guarantee that you can buy something. And in Wrath, well, you'd be hard-pressed not to find some purples on your character after a few weeks.
Wrath definitely made it much more mainstream. I think it's a good thing, but you know, everyone has their opinion on that.
And for some players, the gearing ladder, that going from fresh to bis, is what the game is really all about.
It's all about
and why
the loot.
shouldn't it be? One of the core features of an MMO is that your character exists in a persistent world and gradually gains power. And what better method to gauge that power gain than getting some perps? But getting those perps...
Oh, that I need to do Nax.
That's last laugh, man. That's a really... Man, that brings back memories.
Bro, like, if this was me, I loot that to myself, I loot this to myself, easy.
Let's be fair, you probably get everything but the boundless ambition, and even that.
I just let the other 2 items rot. I'm done. I'm see y'all back in Old War.
Especially the bis ones, whatever the expansion turns out to be quite difficult. Guilds will reserve items, favor certain raiders over others, or...
Yeah. Thankfully, I was mostly in a guild that we focused like on the tanks and healers, and everyone else was, you know, free for all. Obviously, you had the what was it, GKP, whatever, like RDP. What basically you get points for how many raids you attend, but other than that, it was pretty much everyone had a chance to get loot. But yeah, I definitely, when I was doing the hardcore rating, like really trying to be like in the top of the rating guilds, yeah, a lot of favoritism was going around.
Prioritize roles for loot.
Of course.
And pugs are just unreliable and full of drama. People have connection issues after their item doesn't drop, players needing on stuff that's useless for them, and people performing terribly that you have to carry, and of course they are gonna roll.
Oh my god, yeah, especially this fight. Like, he did a really good job with the editing by adding this fight to that. Like, I didn't pug too often, but man, this fight was a pug killer.
Higher than you when the item you want drops.
That's why you always do everything for rolls. Like, I am a very big believer in loot council. I am a loot council enjoyer, and I will be the first to tell you that if you win the roll on an item, and I feel like you're not trying in my raid, you lose the roll.
Ooh, I didn't know. I guess that makes sense, though. I don't know if they should base it off of like DPS specs or like the meter, damage meter, but I don't know if I agree with that because it's like you should have kicked them before you downed the boss if that was the case. You know what I mean? Because it's like, well, you just waste. Like, yeah, they may have like kind of wasted your time, but you really wasted their time. Because it's like they joined the raid. I guess if they like die immediately and they get rezzed and they die immediately again, then I would agree to that. But outside of that, I don't know. It's been a long time since I raided though, so maybe that's more fair.
Bonus rule just happened. Yep, I absolutely do that.
If there is a
You reward winners and you punish losers. If you don't do that, you just get losers.
better way to do all this, a way to skip the queue,
And you
a way
don't
to
get
know for
winners.
almost certain that if an item drops, you'll be able to get it without all the hassle of guilds or forming hard res groups.
Yeah, play a private server.
Well, many years ago, players came to a conclusion that there was, and this is done through gold. We
Yup.
make a raid, we invite a mix of people. So
Yeah, but I think like the amount of people who did this, I think a lot of people like the. I don't know. It could be wrong because I didn't really play WoW Classic at the end game a lot, or at least the new WoW Classic. In the old school, like back in the original WoW Classic, like I never really heard too much about this. Like very, very, very few people did this,
some of them
and they were kind of known in the server for being trash. Like great gear, but they as a player are trash.
don't need any items, but they're going to perform very well. These are the carry players.
Like the top warrior in our server, I still remember this. Top warrior in our server sold his character, like the whole character. I think he sold it for like 300 or maybe 500. I know it was like a couple hundred. And the dude who took over was so bad that people were dueling him outside of Ogremar. And like you had people with greens like kicking his butt. Like most of the time. Sometimes he just instant kill like the people because he's basically as geared as you could get. But man, that was just so funny. The guy got so mad, like he quit the game for like I think a week because a lot of people had them on like their friends list just to keep track of the guy.
Others are fresh level capped characters and they need loads of items,
Oh,
but
yeah.
they're going to
They got
perform
big money.
very poorly. These are the buyers.
Yep.
We run through the content and at the end of it, auction off every piece of gear. Highest bidder wins. No
My guild did this. They just put it like any BIS best gear or banana equip BOE gear that drop that we really didn't really like need for anyone would get sold, and then the funds would be added to the guild bank.
loot drama, no, that's not BIS for you. The only metric that matters is how much is
Money,
this
money,
item
money.
worth to you. Then at the end, the total pot of gold from all the auctions is divided out amongst the group. Everyone is
Well, I don't know about that last part. I mean, that's like, it depends on how you want to look at things, and like, every group wants to do it differently. But like,
Yeah, sure as it. Oh my god, dude! Like this dude was like a degenerate of degenerates, freaking man. Uh, I don't think I've ever run into a player like Asmongold.
yeah, I mean, GDKPs, like, we did GDKPs back in Wrath. Like, original Wrath, like, we started doing this back in, well, the thing is, like, they let you trade gear.
But then I did it. I did stop raiding after. When did I really stop? I think in Wrath actually. Like I did try the Crusader. Did of course Ice Crown, but I didn't really do Uldar. I did a little bit, but it just wasn't like that was when I was getting really kind of tired of raiding. So maybe that's why. Just getting out of the raiding scene gets you away from like really weird, like degenerate behavior. So
Gear in like Old War or something like that. Before that, you would have to need on the gear and then get a GM to ticket it to the other person, which is like really annoying, and so you didn't really do it that much. There were guys in China were doing GDKPs back in BC, but like it never really caught on in US until like Old War, and like really caught on a lot in TOC, and then by ICC it was like full swing.
winner.
that makes sense then. Yeah, because with Ice Crown, I did it once just to beat the Lich King, and never went again.
The geared players have a reason to run and farm old content, and the fresh characters walk out with several purples. This loot system is known as GDKP,
Yep.
a mix of the infamous DKP system, which awarded players points based upon various guild set rules such as attendance, boss kills, and so on,
Yep.
and they could then go on
DKP
to
was a
use
good
those
idea.
points to bid on gear. And the G stands for gold, except the whole point system is just replaced by gold.
Yeah.
You bid on items with gold. That's it, really.
That's it.
And
That's
there's
all
so
there is to
many
it, yeah.
benefits to it. Everyone
look at it.
leaves with something. If you don't get items, you get gold.
I remember my guild was first doing DKP, like, because this was like super new to everyone. Like they really did not do it well. Like, I was kind of into like min-maxing stuff, so I really took advantage of a lot of the things that my guild had set up because they were just going off of like freaking dumb rules to get points. So I always had more points than literally everyone. I think the guild leader was the only one who had more points than me, but we weren't even the same class, so it didn't even matter. I got everything I needed, usually way ahead of everyone else. I mean, it was dumb at first, but after a while, you know, it made a lot more sense. And I don't know. I think nowadays DKP is fine. I don't know about the GDKP. Was kind of never got into that. Never seen it really happen. So I'm assuming it's trash because that means you have to have someone in there who's trash. So
There's no faster way to gear a fresh character than entering a GDKP with a full wallet. You know full
wait, is this Asmon? Like this dude use Asmon's freaking stream?
well that nobody is going to have connection
That's
issues
funny.
halfway through, because if they do, well, they're not going to get their cut at the end of the raid, are they?
That's the best part about GDKPs, is you can hold people's cut over their head and make them continue. Yeah, this is absolutely. We used to troll people by bidding on BIS trinkets. Yeah, we do the same thing.
You can add further incentives such as a performance cut for players who are best on DPS. This gives
Yep.
people a reason to actually want to try and perform well during these.
If you do GDKPs and you like scamming people out of the money, the best thing to do is add as many of these like different obfuscation measures as possible. That way it's harder for people to reverse engineer the math and see if you're taking gold out of the pot.
Raids, and believe me, since they started
I
to get
remember watching-
popular,
Yeah, I probably wouldn't have joined any of Asmon's raids just because it's like once you get to a point where reverse engineering isn't super easy, I'm immediately not interested because I just assume you're going to try to scam me, and I just don't want to deal with it. That's always the case. Like when something's overcomplicated like that, I'm just assuming you're trying to scam me because when it's complicated when it doesn't need to be, there's usually a reason for it.
in
This one.
Classic, there is no gold maker
Yep.
in the entire game which can
Phew,
even remotely
198.
compete with taking other players' earnings in exchange for epics.
That's
but
right.
it shouldn't be a surprise that GDKPs have made a big return to Classic. They are an older invention than even Warcraft as an MMO, having roots in EverQuest alongside the original DKP
Oh, wow.
loot system. Players realized pretty early on that, hey, even though we don't need anything from this content, other people do, and
We'll
we
take
do
them
need
through
their
it, yeah.
gold. In
Is that, as I said kind of in the beginning, it's always inevitable because you get to a point where you hit the ceiling, you know, nothing else to do. Maybe you want to do like some crafting stuff, but you don't really want to spend the time grinding. Easiest way, sell what you have for gold so you can make the other thing easier.
original vanilla, the idea of a GDKP was, well, very sparse, which in retrospect, with how much top guilds struggled on progression content, is a bit of a surprise, to be honest, considering that consumables were stacked by the dozen back then too. They would have needed
Oh,
loads
man.
of gold. I'm sure there's
Yeah.
the odd story of the occasional bit of loot being auctioned off in vanilla, but as a widespread phenomenon, no, it really wasn't.
No, back
Bringing people didn't really happen, and I think that is because like you couldn't really have too much dead weight in these kind of raids that I remember, especially considering not many people were that skilled to begin with. Obviously, you do these raids now; they're a bit of a joke, but back then, like these were pretty tough. And bringing dead weight along, even if it made they would pay, just wasn't really worth it.
then, if I remember right, people viewed auctioning off gold for gear in vanilla WoW as like basically scamming.
No, not at least on my server. It was pretty normal. Even stuff you would find in the open world, like what there was like a sword, like a tanking sword. I forget now what it was, but it was like the a really good, maybe not quite as good as like raid quality, but it was like definitely up there. Um, that was just farmed all day by people because they would want to sell it, of course. If you found it while normal questing, like that was like hitting the jackpot. Like it happened to my friend. Like it was really cool. But no, that was normal. Like selling BOEs and stuff. Auctioning, maybe that's what he's talking about. I mean no, because they put it in the auction house, or they would say like highest bid gets it. So not really.
Wasn't. In TBC, there was a few more rumblings of people frequently joining the odd GDKP, and by the Sunwell patch, all prior raid content had been nerfed, making it really easy and accessible. That being the likes of Tier 4 with Magtharad and Gruul's Lair and Karazhan were simple
Yeah.
starting points for this elite system, and players would often go and clear the trash at the start of the
You know what? GDKP was probably the most prevalent on Gruul's Lair, at least on the servers I played on. Like it wasn't really a thing in the other ones, a little bit, but like Gruul's Lair, oh, that was like almost everyone was doing it because Gruul's Lair was just a DPS check. So if you knew how much DPS you could commit with like 18 people or whatever, like a few people missing, and you were still able to hit it, cool. You can bring people in. Doesn't really matter if they die right away because you have the DPS check. So
had like kind of a soft GDKP with yeah, that's right. I think that we did GDKP Carrot Trash. Yeah, I haven't thought about that for a long time.
yeah,
I'm
Carrot
pretty sure
Trash.
that we
Oh
did. I'd
shit.
have to go back and look
Yep,
at the screenshots.
that was another one.
And this is like back in TBC. But like what we would
Not the bosses, but definitely the trash. I completely forgot about that. Man.
do, or like this isn't even me, like I didn't even run these raids, the guys in my guild would do, is they would do Gruul's Lair, and they would say that if Dragonspine Trophy drops, we're going to be giving out 5,000 gold. And so people would join because it's like, oh, well, if this item drops, I get paid.
Well, and then sell off the very powerful epic recipes and BOEs. But it was really in Wrath of the Lich King that the GDKP began to show its head as a loot system that more and more players engage with. Particularly, there are many.
You also gotta remember, Wrath had probably the largest since at that time at least. Like they were way more casual players in Wrath than any expansion prior, since Vanilla and Burning Crusade.
Articles out there which began to crop up around mid to late 2010, which in the World of Warcraft timeline was during the ICC patch. And Wrath was the perfect time for this loot system to go viral. By ICC, players were mega geared and could easily go back and crush old content to farm some gold. There was both 10 and 25 man modes for each raid, giving players choice, and as we well know nowadays, Wrath of the Lich King had the highest sub count ever. Lots of potential customers out there for those purples. One of the earliest articles I could find about World of Warcraft and GDKP was from...
And this is the best thing about GDKP is everybody comes out ahead. It doesn't matter if you get the loot or not, everybody gets paid. And that's why GDKP was so appealing to people.
Yeah.
And is so appealing.
From a blog released 1 month before Wrath dropped, it quotes a post from Elitist Jerks.
I think WoW is also, or Wrath was one of the ones where if you get fully geared in that raid, you could crush that raid, like, pretty much with your eyes closed. I could be wrong, because like I said, I didn't read too much in Wrath, but that was the feeling I got and kind of what I remember. So doing GDKPs was far, far easier in Wrath than any other expansion.
On how GDKP works. Unfortunately, the Elitist Joke page link didn't work, but they certainly have the basics down, including the upsides such as players are encouraged to stay right to the end, well-geared main characters are encouraged to come even if they don't want any drops, and well-healed...
I think that's also another big factor, is it gives players that are geared a reason to do raids that they don't need gear from.
Yep.
And that's a huge positive.
That's a good thing.
Ults can get
100%.
geared up quickly without much grind.
That's why a lot of games I wish would do more incentives for helping players, like Final Fantasy, when you're doing a duty queue and it's someone who's never done it before, you get bonus experience. So that's cool. Like I think more things like that that encourage you to help other players around you is always a good thing.
They also highlight the downsides. It
Obviously, you gotta like really get the king set, otherwise people will take advantage of it.
encourages gold selling, and if you could spend some real cash for in-game gold and translate it so easily into items via a GDKP run, why would you do anything else? And the
Great question.
I think that's a weird thing to say though, because back even in the day you could buy characters. 1 second. All right. What I was talking about, characters. People, yeah, people bought characters, man. So it's like, why would you do anything else? I mean, one, you could get banned. And I think even back then you could get banned for buying gold. So there was that, and then it was, I don't know, it's like cheating in a game. Like it's instant gratification, but probably not going to play the game long after that.
also mention or Blizzard or any company for that.
Also, more people actually had friends, or like maybe I'm the oddball here, but I don't really make too many friends in MMOs anymore. And back then, like I did have plenty of friends, or at least people on a friends list I would play with. And if you just bought all the gear, like you jumped ahead of them, you couldn't go to rate. Like raiding with them, of course, you could still do, but it's like it wasn't the same thing because you weren't really wanting to get any gear anymore because you had better gear. You know what I'm saying? So
That matter needs to do is complete the circle and sell gold themselves.
This is on Elitist Jerks, right? So like we could pretty much like guarantee that Ian saw this post. Like 100%, he probably saw this shit. Yeah, that is crazy. Wow, look at that.
excuse me.
Well, we don't quite have that in Wrath. The WoW token came out in Warlords of Draenor, but the gold buying from
Damn. 352,000. I wonder how much I get for it now. I'm not really interested, but I always like to know this kind of stuff because it's like, is gold going to be that big of an issue? Because I might stop playing. Like if I feel like I have to really buy the WoW token, I usually just stop playing.
third-party websites to then spend in-game on items has always been a concern, and a valid one at that. You know, looking through these old articles and posts, at the time GDKP was seen a little cautiously, but generally positively. People like the idea of raiding for gold and having reasons to go back and do old content, which...
Yeah. Oh, I will say, by the way, I am a big advocate of GDKP. I am a GDKP enjoyer. I think GDKP is good.
I don't think there's anything wrong with GDKP. Because it's like, what are the negatives? Like, if you really think about it, what are the negatives? And it's people who probably wouldn't have raid to begin with now have raid gear. So maybe other than devaluing raid gear, but if that's like, is that really such a big deal? Because it's not like there is this like insane army of GDKPers. It's usually like a handful of people. Like it's not like a ton. So it's, I don't know. Like I don't see it as that big a deal, to be honest.
For a time was the focus of GDKP. Surely it wouldn't ever replace raiding with a guild on current content, let alone hard mode or heroic content.
No way.
Would it? Enter Classic World of Warcraft.
Yeah,
Some
there we go.
15 years after the original release, the game was back, this time with a very different player base. Instead of Rag living for months, he lived for a number of days. Each and every raid tier upon release was cleared within an hour or less, and those once revered purples flowed like water. Players rather quickly figured.
Yeah, I brought this up earlier. Like, you just like the raids in classic were a joke, are a joke compared to the raids that are releasing now. So that's why on a previous video he said Wrath is like the apex or like the best rating had ever been. It's like no, um, it was much better than previous expansions, but like it can't really compare to the raids that are out now. You would just roll over them, like they're not difficult at all.
Figured out, gee, this content's pretty easy, as well as, man, flasks sure are expensive. What if we were to take the long-standing tradition of the GDKP and bring it back way earlier than it ever was before? And that is indeed what happened.
It's not that they thought about bringing it back way earlier than before. It's more like the knowledge is there now. Like most people know about GDKPs, how they work. They got the system fleshed out. So it just makes sense. Like even back then, like if the knowledge was there, like original WoW would have had it most likely. It's just most people didn't even like know about it.
Too many GDKPs early on because, well, you needed some time for the buyers to level up, but by the time Blackwing Lure was out, well, we were well in the swing of things, and prices that items were going for totally out of the belief of any reasonable person. Oh, and by the way, very early on in Classic, I may hypothetically know that one Classic Gold was worth about 1k retail. No, really.
One Classic Gold was 1 to 1k, so it's like 1 million for 1,000 gold. Yeah, it's about right.
Gold was a huge part of Classic. So when you went out and farmed your 80 gold per hour and thought, that's not half bad, I feel quite good about myself there. And then you went on the internet and read Bone Reaver's Edge goes for 51,000 gold.
Yeah.
Dragonspine Trophy goes for 37,000 gold in a
Well, yeah. Because botting in Classic WoW is just so prevalent. And a lot of the grinding spots is mostly just killing. Either dungeon spamming, chaining, like mage, like trains and stuff like that. It's like botting heaven. So it's like, that's why gold is so inflated like this. Because if there were no bots and stuff, and you had to rely on standard people playing the game generating gold, like these prices would be less, maybe a third of what they're showing.
Different GDKP. Actually, I'm joking, that's cheap. It went for 46k in this one, for example, and then
yeah, I feel like DST, I mean, that's a best in slot until max situation, so like, yeah, of course people are gonna want that.
Came around and you began seeing pots come out at 87k for the entire raid, and perhaps to top it all off, Gressel Dawn of Ruin, the best one-handed sword in the game, selling for a total of 198,000 gold, which is just about 20k shy of the gold cap in the game.
That guy must have farmed a long time. That's a lot of Black Lotuses.
You saw that and thought to yourself, wow, why am I here thieving in Blackrot depths for minimum wage when I could be making thousands an hour instead if I join a GDKP? It begged the question, how on earth is
that's exactly what I did. Like back in the day, I would 100% join GDKPs.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. It's the number one to make gold. I mean, it's no problem with it being the number one way. The main problem is that it's such an inflated price. And because of bots. Like, bots, they ruin gold economies, unfortunately.
Like, we had a weekly...
It's like, Lazy Peon had his video on Will He Play Dragonflight. He mentions in one of the games, I think it was RuneScape or Albion, where you can see how much your gold is actually worth in, like, money, or, like, cash. And it just it demoralizes you. It's similar to, like, this and that, because bots are so prevalent in Classic WoW, they make your gold that you've earned the normal way seem like chump change. Like you just made maybe a nickel in the last hour. So it's like, to me, it's just as bad. Like, that's one thing MMOs really, when you let bots like really have their way in an MMO, it will destroy that economy. And if your economy is semi-important, especially like in Classic WoW towards the end, like gold is really pretty important. A lot of things cost quite a bit of gold. Like it just messes things really up. Like this price would not exist without bots, just straight up.
GDKP for ICC that we did. That remember that Death Knight Reinhardt? He used to make PvP videos. That was our raid leader, and we did this back at KT. I got my Bryn Troll, 277 heroic Bryn Troll. I got it in a GDKP run, in his run. I got it for minimum bid too. It was a good day.
One able to amass
Yeah,
such
we went
vast
hard on
quantities of gold, and benefit of the doubt, if they have faithfully been spending 18 hours a day in Diamol East for 3 weeks straight, why would they drop that entire sum of gold, all that work, on one single item? It just doesn't quite add up, does it? Moving into TBC, those BIS items kept dropping and the insane gold bids kept rolling in. Dragonfang Talisman became the new Drakespine trophy, and there are so many cases of it going for well in excess of 50,000 gold. The Black
Yeah, it's no big deal. I mean, I'm sure Warglaives went for 100k regularly.
Temple brought with it the infamous Warglaives of Azanoth, often pre-sold to ensure a good price. It wasn't unusual in the early weeks to see them well upwards of 6.
A few have been Bro, how do you have bro, I love how gamers think that somebody, like, we're gonna all be able to get together to, like, not pre-order games, but meanwhile, these fucking fiends can't even stop themselves from pre-ordering an item. That is just fucking degenerate. I love it.
Yeah, that really wasn't a thing, at least on my server. I'd never heard of anyone pre-ordering an item already. And my guild sold Warglaives, actually. I don't remember for how much anymore. But I remember when we did get a drop for it. Like our guild, like we were running some people. It wasn't even like a GDKP exactly. It was more someone paid to run the guild with, like just a normal run with us. And if they wanted gear, they had to roll for it. Like, it wasn't like where they could buy gear. They paid for the run, and then they could roll for the gear with us. But like the Warglaives, like I remember they were telling them like, "Hey, if you want this, it's gonna be whatever amount. I can't remember anymore." But like they bought it, and everyone was like, at first was like I remember like almost a lot of people almost quit the guild there. But then our guild leader spread out the gold like evenly. I don't know if maybe he whispered the guy and got more than what he said, but based on just what was typed in the actual raid chat, he split it all up, and everyone's like, okay, well, at least we got a ton of gold, because it wasn't like it was really the guild leader that could use the Warglaives, and I think like 2 other people, so it wasn't like a big deal losing him.
Like, this is the kind of stuff, by the way, I love about video games. I think this stuff is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you're truly experiencing an MMO when you're doing stuff like this.
This is the real emerging...
Because this is the kind of stuff that won't happen in any other type of game, period.
Gameplay that I think gives you just that slight little peek onto the underbelly of the human condition.
I guess. I mean, I don't really know what he's talking about. I think everyone knows people like to pre-order stuff. Everyone knows people will pay money to get the best of the best, even if it's like overpriced. So I don't know.
It is just, oh, it's so good. I love it. Player economies. You love to see it.
If it's run just by players, as I mentioned, I keep mentioning like bots will ruin it, but like standard player economies are actually really good.
For each of these legendary items, warriors with somewhat questionable gear alongside a glaive.
Wow. You know, the funny thing with me is that we had a guy win the offhand Warglaive in my group too. Except nobody got paid for it. And I'm pretty sure his gear was worse than that. Remember that guy?
would occasionally begin to appear on your server, and during the opening week of the Sunwell, a GDKP cleared the entire instance, netting a total pot of just in excess of 1 million gold, during which Thoridal the
Jesus.
Star's Fury dropped and was bought for the unreal price of 350,000 gold.
By
That I'm trying to remember, but I'm like 99% sure this never dropped for us. Or at least when I played. My guild never got this. Yeah. I'm trying to recall, and I cannot remember it once dropping for us. Which is weird because I recognize it. So maybe one of my friends had it and not
By the
like a guild
way,
member.
like Thoridal was only like marginally fucking better than Golden Bow of Quel'Thalas. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it wasn't like the greatest compared to. It also didn't look anywhere near as cool as the Warglaives.
Right? Can anybody correct me on that? I remember whenever the game came out, there was a big discussion about like whether it was even good or not. Yeah, it looks cool though. Yeah, it does.
It's probably the only like legendary, or he says unique, but treated like a legendary, that is the least famous one. Maybe there's least like worse ones. I don't know, but I know like for its time, it was like the worst one.
It's crazy for hunters, but you don't need arrows. Yeah, true. I remember, didn't the first bow ever go to a rogue?
By a warrior. And in Wrath it's still early days, but prices are down on what they used to be.
Of course it was a warrior. Warriors are always the biggest whales. It's the same as in Lost Ark. Anytime you see somebody with a really
That's
high
true.
item level in Lost Ark, it's a berserker. Every single time.
It's the aesthetic. They want to be a big badass.
In Classic and TBC due to generally more gearing options and smaller raid sizes.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is the
I still remember my raid had the toughest time with Malagos. I don't know why. I have no idea why. It was like the only raid that actually gave us a real tough time.
potential downside of GDKPs encouraging gold buying is very, very real. There is quite literally no other part of the game that deals with volumes of gold this large.
Yes.
In fact, it wasn't till Wrath where Blizzard started putting things in the game such as the Dalaran Epic Rings for just under 8k or the Traveler's Tundra Mammoth for 16k that there was an actual reason to have this much cash lying about. Before that, it was all player driven, and
We did have the bag in Burning Crusade, and 5,000 gold was a pretty hefty fucking fee in Burning Crusade as well. There were gold sinks in BC, but he's absolutely right that there were way more in Wrath.
in Classic, player-driven meant somebody had nearly 200,000 gold to spend on one item. Today, we are still in Tier 7, with Ulduar expected early 2023, and it's going to be pre-nerf Ulduar 2 with boosted item level gear, and I can tell you without a doubt that GDKPs will clear it week 1. Remember, Thoridal went for 350,000 gold week 1. Imagine the price of
I
That
find
definitely
it
makes sense.
unlikely that a GDKP will clear 0 light on week 1 on 25 men.
That's. I think it probably will happen. Only because more than likely, the people who are going to do that kind of thing, they're already like training. Most likely, they are making sure they have that fight down to a T. There's private servers that have it. There's the real servers. Like, it's not going to be that difficult. I think the most difficult part is any kind of gear checks, like DPS checks. And even then, like, let's be fair, these people are going to have the most optimal builds available with the best class. Like, everything's just going to be hyper optimized. So
If you assume 5 people there are not really playing the game, 20 manning, 0 light, pre-nerf, with 21 to 20 people alive, I mean, it seems unlikely. But we'll see. I could be wrong.
boosted item level weapons from Algalon or Yogg-Saron, for example. You bet the gold seller, honest players running 24 GDKPs a week are after that payout.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that right there is the big distinction between GDKP back then in 2008 to 10 and today.
What's that?
Gold can replace a guild, but it ain't cheap. The main reason
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely true, so.
That's not true.
I see what he. Maybe I think I know where he's going to go with that, but I know what the narrator's talking about, or the main video. He's, like, the main reason a lot of people get into guilds is for gear. So, like, if you can buy that gear, you're buying the purpose of the guild. So, in that sense, yes.
Bro, like, for the longest time, like, my friends and I, we weren't in a guild. We're just mercenaries for hire. You pay us, we go up in the raid, we get the shit done. You give us the money, we come back next week.
Yep.
Yeah, that's all. That was one of the best things about it back in the day. Yeah, I mean, what are you talking about? Absolutely. I never did this shit with my guild. I always did it with pugs.
reasons are that
To be fair, Asmon, like, you kind of scammed, or you were known for scamming, so it's like, you can't really do that with a guild, unless you wanted to lose the guild pretty quickly, so.
A,
Good deal,
turns
yeah.
out the content is still pretty easy for us. B, people are just generally much better at the game. We understand it better, we know how to min-max better, we know all the tactics in advance. And
Not
C,
everybody.
the stakes are higher. There's more gold involved now than there ever was before. And with GDKP
I just can't believe somebody fucking GDKP's next 25-man, man. Like, I mean, how bad do you have to be a buyer in a next 25-man raid? I mean, come on. It's not that hard.
becoming a lot more visible, there's been a lot more criticism
I think it's not about difficulty. It's most people just feel like that entrance to rating is too high a bar, so they don't even realize like it is easy.
of it. What was once curiosity has now, for many, turned
Like I think a lot of the buyers they could probably even do the fights if they bothered to get into rating, like learn about it and stuff like that. It's just they don't want to.
to disdain. Where there was once pug runs and soft reserve runs, now there's gold runs. Gameplay
I gotta use the restroom. I'll be back. All right, I'm back. I don't remember what they were talking about.
Play has been replaced
Yeah.
by a race to reach the finish line and restart a new character.
That's
One
right.
such post from a Chinese player
That's
during...
right, boys. That's how it works, right? You buy the game, then you buy the expansion, you buy the level boost, you buy a level dungeon runs up to level 80, then you buy gold, and then you buy BOEs off the auction house, then you buy enchants for the BOEs, and then you get into a GDKP raid. You buy the gear out of the GDKP raid. You have to buy new enchants and new gems for the gear.
Uh, that almost sounds like the rap they did for when he was talking about Bar to Power and I think Shadowlands, like trying to get a ult up to the main character. I have a feeling people are going to clip him again for this one, but yeah, that was a lot.
You also have to buy the Hodir relics to get Hodir exalted, and then you buy the shoulder enchant for the shoulders that you bought, and then after that you get that much gear, and so you start doing arena. You buy a carry to 2k, so you're able to get all the deadly gear as well, and at that point you're finally able to play the game.
Yeah, man, when he goes over, it's just a lot. Like I don't remember even half of those. But yeah.
It's exciting, huh? It's just like it used to be.
I swear to God,
Finally, you can play the game.
Classic highlights how after NetEase released the World of Warcraft token on Chinese realms during Phase 2, gold farmers flocked to NA as they could make up to 7 times as much from farming there. And
yeah, because literally the people here spend more fucking money than the people over there.
In general, definitely.
It's that simple.
This day, North American realms always seem to be the region that has the most attempts at botting. The WoW forums and Reddit frequently
Well, the reason why is that NA has the best economy.
For botters, yeah. It's pretty... And that's what I was talking about, like botting, like, they're going to ruin the economy. But, you know, there's a reason why they do what they do.
So, we have the most money. You want to fish where the fish are.
Well, you want to fish with the biggest fish.
And if you might as well be fishing, you're going to fish for the big fish.
Oh, there he is.
And there's a lot of big fish over here in the U.S.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, China has, like, a ton more fish, but the bigger fish are much bigger in the U.S. I wonder, I'm not saying, like, Chinese, like, there aren't rich people in China. I think, like, the rich, though, in America buy dumb stuff. Maybe it's different in China. I don't know. It's just, maybe they just don't have as many gamers that are whales in China.
Arguments that GDKP has gone too far. It's replacing the game with paid services, clearly incentivized by buying gold for real money. What was once guilds running old content back then has turned into a substitution for raiding with a guild.
Which I think is okay. That's emergent player behavior.
It is, and like I said, I have no problem with it. I also think it's like a good thing, as long as Blizzard keeps bots in check. Like if they can't do that, then no, because it's going to ruin the game for most players who aren't willing to spend money, which is not a thing you really want to incentivize in long term enjoyment.
I think that almost all emergent player behavior in a video game is good.
GDKP has also very quickly and clearly become the most lucrative gold farm possible in the game. Why on earth would I go herbing or farming in the open world when I can pocket potentially thousands of gold for an easy raid clear for somebody else's fresh ult? Again, it's hard to argue with the results, but Blizzard, so far, have been pretty content to leave this player-made environment exist. In the past, they've gone after other player discoveries such as boosting, which they finally determined as being not healthy for the game.
That or they just want to be in charge of being the main sellers of it. I don't know. Do they have boosting? I can't remember if they added it to Classic WoW. But, I mean, to be fair, WoW in general, Blizzard is pretty lazy. Like, botting's been an issue for a while, and they still haven't really done too much about it, so...
It is still possible, just to a lesser degree than it once was. Should they go after GDKPs next? How would that even be done? There's hardly going to
can't
be a
do it.
GM watching over every raid, is there? For me in this situation, I've never really been a fan of the whole GDKP system. Of course, I think beyond anything else it encourages gold buying, though I will say since TBC, the actual need for gold in order to get consumed.
What they need to do is just really focus on bots and them selling. Like, that's really it. Obviously, the WoW token's like its own animal, but like if they can get that under control, like GDKP is perfectly fine.
Raid, PvP, and so
It's not that bad in Wrath. Like, you don't really need to do it. I'm gonna be real. I actually think that GDKP is great. I used to participate in a lot of GDKPs as a player and also as running the GDKPs myself. I love them. I thought they were really fun and enjoyable. I got a lot out of them. It made it to where I didn't have to farm gold. I could just, use my gear and be able to play the game in the way that I wanted to and pay for my own shit on my own.
Yeah, it's like really, really good.
It was great. I think GDKPs are really good. I also dislike the idea that you should punish the entire player base because Blizzard decided not to moderate their own game.
Exactly what I was saying. Because they did not keep in check the bots, they now have to remove things that made the game really cool.
What they're effectively saying is that you can no longer engage in this emergent player behavior because we are unwilling to finance GMs to ban people that are botting and buying gold.
Exactly. 100% exactly. Like, this kind of player behavior is great. And honestly, Ashes of Creation, I'm so looking forward to that. Because I have a feeling that they know for that kind of game, bots are going to be their kryptonite. If they cannot get the botting situation under control, that game's going to be dead on arrival. Like, maybe not on arrival, but like, it's not going anywhere if they cannot get the bot situation under control, which you're going to find out fairly early on. And to me, that's going to be determining whether I play the game like long term. Like, if they can't get the bots under control with like right away, or like, you're running some bots all over the place, I'm not touching that game again. Maybe like new servers and they have the bots again under control. I don't know, but like that to me, for a game like Ashes, like Warcraft, obviously you can tell like even this kind of thing is being affected by bots, but like Ashes of Creation is going to be like a whole another level of it. And bots are like they're going to do their absolute best because there's going to be some crazy people wanting to spend tons of money once they get in that game,
which I will simply not accept. Like, I would rather not play a game than see a game's quality diminished because of some bullshit like this.
Exactly, and that's was my feelings on Ashes. It's also why I know a lot of people are like nervous or skeptical on the world PvP with Ashes, and honestly, that's going to be really hard to get right, just because it's so easy to get wrong with that kind of system, because you got to remember there's going to be probably millions of people playing Ashes of Creations, probably. Who knows really, but I would assume so. So if 10%, let's say even 5% of the player base want to be jerks, that's literally thousands of people who are going to do their best to make everyone around them like have a worse experience. Like, that is going to be their goal, and unfortunately that's just how the game is. So it's like how they should really go into it with Ashes. The developers assume the worst, assume people are going to do everything they can to grief as many players as they can in any way they can. That is the only way they're going to be able to get that system right, because it's going to happen. Unfortunately, like every time that system comes out, it always happens where you get people who want to grief. And I know a lot of people like, oh no, it's going to be like way less than that, like maybe like whatever, like a handful of people. It's like, no, that's, you don't know psychology, like you've never played an MMO then that had those systems. Because one, it's kind of niche and to begin with, but it's not niche if it's in a very large game. Like say World of Warcraft, for example. World of Warcraft was not niche. Like, it's one of the largest ones, and yet it had systems similar to it, and people took advantage of it and griefed the heck out of other people. A lot of people quit because of that too. They had to remove it. If you notice, it's not really a thing anymore. There's a reason for that. So, I don't know. Like I'm both nervous and excited with Ashes because it's like if they don't nail that right, if they don't get the bots down, like there's a few things that could go wrong that would just ruin that whole game.
Oh, we can't beat the gold sellers? Yeah, you can. You easily can.
Yep, you find basically like a GM, like just one GM per server could probably do it too, where they could knock out most bots. Maybe not all. Like honestly, I think three GMs a server would like knock out like 70 to 80% of bots.
You've got to be a fucking moron to not be able to figure it out.
One is just way down on what it was in Classic. But it's not just that, it's just kind of GDKP breaks what the game is all about for me, and here's what I mean. For me,
opposite. For me, my class fantasy mainly is being a mercenary, being tied down to no one.
I think a lot of people would actually lean towards Asmon's end goal kind of thing. I think that's why GDKP is also so prevalent, is that you don't want to be tied down to a guild. You don't really want to get involved in all that stuff. You just want the gear.
Existing on my own, by myself, for myself, with a handful of loose associates that we sometimes get together and we pull off an event.
The Kirito fantasy, yeah.
You know? That's what I like doing. So personally, like my class fantasy, my MMO fantasy is being a mercenary in that way, right? And it's an ebb and flow, right? Sometimes you like that. Sometimes you like, being in a guild and like running a guild with like your group of friends. Usually I go back and forth, and this is what I've always done.
Yeah.
Classic, and I guess WoW as a whole is like a pyramid.
I think a lot of people do that, but I think they mostly lean on the solo experience. Just because you can kind of play when you want, how you want. Well, when you're playing with a group, if someone's not online when they need to be, like it's more commitment when you're in a group like that. So
pyramid of content. At the bottom you have leveling your character, and then you have the middle portion, your farming badges, your prebis, professions, enchants, gems, gold farming, all of that good stuff. And right at the top of the pyramid is raiding. That's the peak. That's what it's all for.
Like there used to be a bug where this shit would kill you even if you were this far away. And I got killed by it, and everybody said that it was my fault, but then there was a patch notes, and it said that it wasn't my fault because like they changed the hit radius of it, and then everybody said I was lying, and then I showed the patch notes of it, and then they just called me bald. And
that's usually the case whenever Asmon has like a good like rebuttal, like just call him bald, we win.
It's like you just can't win, but it wasn't my fault whenever I got hit by that. No, and this isn't the recent one. Like the recent one that I stood in, I got hit by, that was totally my fault though.
That's why I'm going out to learn my class, seeing what talents work best, making sure I have the correct consumables and so on. I want to do as well as possible when I raid. So when I take raiding and then just turn it into another gold farm, it's like the top of the pyramid has been taken off and thrown into mid-game content. It's just not...
No, because like if you were one of the carriers for GDKP, you had to be stacked. You had to know what to do. You had to take initiative. You had to have the gear. You had to have the enchants. You had to be fucking ready to go.
Yeah, when you hit the ceiling, basically. Like, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, that's what I'm saying. That's what he says, and that's what I agree with. Like, once you hit that ceiling, like, it kind of sucks when you have nothing else to do, you know? Like, why not give incentives to go and do these, like, help people get gear themselves by running the dungeon, for like, with them, like, making it easier for them. Like, who doesn't... You guys ever have that happen? You're running a dungeon or whatever, you're playing an MMO, doesn't really matter which one, and you just happen to get a group, like a LFG group, just random pug, and maybe one or two people are just freaking stacked, like they're like geared, like leveled up, whatever it may be. Like basically they could almost solo the damn thing without you. Like those are so much fun because they just blow through things. Like it's just crazy. You're just like, damn, dude, I want to be like that. So it's like, I think most people run into that at least some point playing MMOs, and it's like always really cool. So like that's why like personally I don't have any problem with GDKPs. I just they need to get the bot situation under control, otherwise it gets crazy like that. The 198,000, like that's just ridiculous.
So yeah, it's like if you were a carry for GDKPs, you had to be good.
Yep.
What raiding should be for me. I farm gold so I can raid. I don't raid to farm gold, and I like to keep those two things completely separate as much.
Why? I mean, why would you have to farm gold to raid too? Like to me, it's kind of stupid either way. Like if you're gonna say one is better than the other, that's not an argument that I would agree with. Because farm gold to raid. Why do you have to farm gold to raid? I can understand farming dungeons to get the gear to raid, but farming gold to raid is, I think, stupid. Like I think that adds barriers to the entry of raiding that doesn't really need to be there. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I think that's dumb. I hate doing stuff like that. Doing raids to farm gold. I don't mind. I think it makes more sense than the other way around because you're doing end game content. There's nothing wrong with rewarding you with some gear and a bit of gold on the side. Maybe you don't really need the gear, but you can get some gold out of it. Like that to me makes much more sense than the other one.
Much as I can, but again, that's just me. I think this.
Oh, exactly what I said, man. That's so stupid. Like, I some of the things this guy brings up, I agree with, but man, that was kind of a dumb take. Farming gold to raid, like no one likes doing that. I've met, like no one in my guild like doing it. Like building up the potions and all that garbage. It's stupid.
Definitely a divide between players who are more loot driven and are more content driven. I mean, how many people did you hear quit back in?
Most people are a mix of the two. Like it's very rare you get someone who's like, "Oh, all I care about is the loots," or "All I care about is the content." Even though they're kind of the same thing, to be honest. Because loot is content. I don't know why you would think it's not, but it definitely is. But yeah.
In Classic or TBC after they got that one item they've been after forever. You can even test this too. Take this example. Imagine the scenario. You're doing a speedrun with your guild of next 25.
That's what happens to me every time. The moment I finish my best in slot, I say later, bitch. But GDKP's changed that. And I remember I would come back even after I got my full best in slot.
Yeah, if you don't have a tight guild, that is super common. Like my brother, man, he was a priest and I think it was Burning Crusade or it could have been Vanilla. And this dude was guild hopping like crazy. Like, because everyone wanted a healer because no one liked healing. Back to that Trinity argument. So it's like he join a guild, get the loot because they were trying to gear him out because he's the healer. He'd leave that guild for an even better guild who was running something higher tier. Do the exact same thing, get as much loot as he could. Once he felt like he couldn't really get any more loot from them, he'd immediately he didn't care about progressing with them. Like he's just like, give me whatever loot you have available. All right, peace. And he'd go. He did that all the way to the very top. Like he started at not like the very low rungs of guilds, made it to the very top of the guild, like the best guild on the server. And then once he got what was that corn of the cob staff? I forget the name of it. But like the freaking best in slot. Like once he had best in slot everything for his priest, he quit the game. He made a new character and just like never raided again with that priest. It's like, and I remember I lost like a friend, like not friend, but like one of the people I like, because one of the guilds I had him join. This was like before he was doing all the guild hopping. One of the first guilds I had him join was like from a friend's guild because they're like, "Hey, we need a heal." I was like, "Oh, my brother heals. Let me ask him if he'll join you guys." And yep, freaking guild hopping. He's like, "Dude, your brother just we gave him this and then he just left." And I was just like, "Oh no, are you kidding me?" Started like classic WoW drama. So, but yeah, no, that was so funny. Like when he told me, and I'd see him like every day with like a different guild almost. Like, what the hell? Oh my god! Like I raided all the time, and he like outgeared me in like a week. Like it was just so funny.
Dragon Soul, if we had
And I didn't think anything of, like, I don't think it's bad to guild hop, because it's like, well, that's on them. They should have waited a little bit before just giving you gear.
2 buyers for the mounts? Yeah, I show up. Yeah, I show up. Yeah, why not?
You're not aiming for world first or anything, just trying to get your 1 hour 15 clear down to a 1 hour 5-minute clear, for example. And in the end, everything goes amazingly, better
2
than you
buyers.
could have possibly
Cool. 2 mounts,
imagined,
2
and you
buyers.
get a sub 1 hour clear. Not only that, but you get immortal as well because nobody died.
That's
However,
not gonna happen.
nothing dropped that you wanted. Or would you prefer joining a GDKP weekly of Next 25 and
I mean, if you're running speed runs, you probably have all the gear you need from that anyways. Like, it doesn't really matter, right? Because it's also a case where people do runs that don't give them gear, but that, like, there's achievements like immortal and stuff. Like, there's definitely people who do that. Maybe they're not as common as the ones who do it for gear, but I think they're like, does it really matter? Like, I don't know. Like, because if you're in a guild that could do speed runs, honestly, most people are just good with that. Like, they're just like, okay, well, I'll get my gear eventually because we're knocking this out so fast. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I guess super impatient people, like, yeah, I'll eventually get it, but I want it now.
2 bis items for you go for really cheap. Imagine you're on your warrior and Grimtal and Betrayer of Humanity.
Bro, that's literally what it was for me. It was literally Brintrol. I minimum bid that shit. I minimum bid that shit because it was heroic, and minimum bid was 5K. I bid that, and I was fucking. I was holding my breath. Nobody bid this shit up, and then I got it. I remember I got that fucking that weapon, and I used it to solo shit all the time because it would proc like crazy whenever you were playing prot. Oh my god, Grimtoll? Oh, Brintoll's the same thing. Grimtoll, like, yeah, I guess well people use that. Yeah, Grimtoll is that the Tin Man one? Maybe it's not. I don't remember.
Drop for only
Maybe
a
I
few
heard of it.
thousand gold each, or being a caster and getting Dying Curse and the Turning Tide for
Ah, yeah. I remember that.
the same amount. Which scenario would
Yeah.
you feel better about? Amazing run with your guild?
Which one would you feel better about? That's a weird thing to compare, to be honest. I think a better comparison would have been doing a GDKP where you're buying the gear that drops that you want. Because his logic is this, that no gear dropped on the fast run, right? So imagine joining a GDKP and none of the gear you want drops. So you can't bid for anything. Which would feel better, the speed run with your guild or the GDKP that you couldn't get anything either? Like, both give you nothing, right? I would like most people would say the guild one, 100% the guild one. So let's change it up so there actually are comparable. Say you're doing your speed run and the same gear drops that you could use, and that same gear drops on a GDKP. GDKP, you're guaranteed that loot, while on the speed run, you have a chance at that loot, so you're rolling for it. Which would feel better, you winning those rolls or you buying that gear? I think winning the rolls would feel better, but losing would also feel worse than buying it. You see what I'm saying? Like, they balance each other out. Once you compare them apples to apples versus his apple to oranges, like, weird thing he did. I have no idea why he compared it that way. That's kind of a dumb comparison, but yeah, like when you compare gear, like obtaining gear in that same vein, like, okay, rolling and winning definitely feels better than just buying it. But also, it also feels worse when you lose it versus when you could have just bought it. So,
or cheap
I think most people would have chosen the guild thing. If, but it's the getting into the guild that can do that. That's the biggest issue, the biggest hurdle for most people, and that's why they do the GDKP in general.
epics in a GDKP. Not that
Loot for nothing and perps for free. Let's get that. Or minimum bid.
there's a wrong answer, it's just people are motivated differently.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all. In any event, it appears
Yeah, but the also such a cop-out answer because it's like, I don't know. like I disagree with like the way he was comparing it. And Asman like obviously has his what he prefers, which is the whole buying gear, running GDKPs himself, which is fun. Like I said, I think it's actually a good thing. But let's also be fair. Like I think a lot of WoW players have, especially if you've been playing the game since like I would at least say like Wrath, is when you're running with your guild mates and you're pushing content and stuff, and then your piece drops, and then you win that loot, especially if it's like something that's a big upgrade, like a weapon. Like that feeling is just so much better than just buying that gear.
That GDKP is here to stay.
Good.
Having become popular in Classic so much earlier than it ever did in Vanilla, it's now grown into a core gold farm
I need to
and
get
alt
that
gearing
axe.
system for many players around the world. Though honestly, I'd rather it wasn't really a thing. I don't see a realistic way to actually stop it
love
from
it.
happening. Even if
The only way you're going to stop that from happening is if you get rid of gold, as like people being able to trade gold with each other. It's literally the only way. And even then, you'd have to stop like materials that they would just use as a substitute for gold as well. So unless you're disabling all trading altogether, there's really nothing you can do about it.
you stop
It's the inevitable for any game with group content, uh, where you can carry people, which is like MMOs in general. Like you'd have to take apart the MMO like as turn it into a standard RPG where you just happen to see people.
people advertising it at this point, it's so well established, people would just
The
go
reason why I like it so much is like it gives a player that doesn't have a lot of time but is good at the game a rewarding and guaranteed way to make money.
It also, I don't know if he's going to mention it, but it also gives people who have a lot of time, aren't that good at the game, to farm gold. Or even if you don't have a lot of time, just say you're not that good at the game, eventually you can farm enough gold to buy these kind of items. You know what I'm saying? Like, say you hate raiding. Maybe you're good at the game, but you hate raiding. So you'd prefer to just farm stuff, farm some gold, and then do a GDKP run to get your gear. Like, it just, the more avenues or more ways you give people to play a game, the better the game, in my opinion. As long as those avenues are roughly like not like too different in terms of like accessibility. Um, at least to me, like that way, if you're the type of person, maybe you can play 2 hours a day or less than that. Um, just do some dailies, get some gold, save up that gold, and then at the end of the week or whatever, how long it took, um, look for someone who's selling a run to the place you want to go. Like that to me is just like that's pretty cool that you can do that. That's actually experiencing the MMO experience almost at its essence, because that wouldn't be possible in a non-MMO. So
Because like if you have good gear and you know what you're doing, you can join a GDKP as a carrier and you can get all the gear. Or sorry, you can get all the money and you don't need the
Yep.
gear. So like it gives you a reason to continue playing the game. I think
it also makes you feel pretty badass. Like when you're the carrier, like obviously the gold is definitely the freaking cherry on top, but like being the carrier of a GDKP is super. Like you feel like you're carrying it, like you're this titan. So
GDKP is so good.
seeking it out. I guess it's a bit of a testament of how players choose to engage with the game
You're like, I don't
differently
wanna farm this shit.
nowadays. Everyone
Fuck
wants
that.
something of value for their time when they're playing a video game, and no one wants to waste their time playing World
man, the kind of farming he's doing is the kind of farming I hate the most. I hate that kind of farming, even if it was like considered the best, especially in this area, Dire Mall. If I remember right, that's where that sword dropped. I do it with friends or I don't do it. Like basically that's my mentality on these kind of stuff.
of Warcraft. Makes you think a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Anyways, hope you liked the video. If you did, drop a like, it helps out. Let me know.
Great video. I don't agree with a lot of his points, but like the conversation, like I really like that. Like the conversation on it, because it has a lot of points to it that are pretty deep and you can really get into it. Yeah, really great video.
Your thoughts and experiences on
I
or
love
in
it.
GDKPs if you have any. And as always, thank you for watching and listening in. And I'll see you all in the next one very soon.
Yeah, I don't have his video up because I'm reacting to Asmon's. But I always go through the videos and just like them. Um, and of course, like in cases where I'm like, okay, that's actually like an interesting video, I'll subscribe to them or follow them, whatever it's called in YouTube. But let's see.
Mega fan of GDKP. Yep, I love it.
That's an interesting Patreon thing he's going. I don't think I've ever seen any other creator do something like this. That's super cool. I really like that.
GDKP equals Giga Dick keeps pounding. True. And that's what we used to do.
Okay. Yeah, I've never heard that. Seriously, I haven't ever heard that one.
This is a good Wooly video. I'm glad to hear other people talking about this. You never done it? Bro, I was doing GDKPs whenever you were probably in fucking middle school.
Yeah, I mean, GDKPs have been around, man. And then they're not going away. Not unless you play single player games.
You probably didn't even know what porn was. I already had a fucking GDKP item. Shut up, bitch. Get the fuck out of here. I want to hear your shit.
Look
There
at
you go.
them tabs.
Let me link y'all the video. That's a good Willy video. I remember I saw this a day ago.
Look at all
I
those
was like,
tabs
oh
he
my
has,
God,
man.
I have to watch this.
Jesus.
I cannot wait to watch this. I was so excited to see this one. Everyone whined about Dungeon Boost, but GDKP are fine. I didn't whine about Dungeon Boost.
Dungeon
I
Boost
never
is
whined about
basically
that
the
shit.
same.
There's no reason for it.
Level boosting. That's the
Have you
one
seen
I
the
don't
Platinum
agree
Wound
with.
video? No, I haven't yet. Remember what killed Vanilla Classic for me? GKP was everywhere. Gold buying was rampant and destroyed any meaning in the game for many.
Yeah, because they didn't have the bots in check. That's literally it.
Bro, like, what do you mean the meaning in the game? Where, like, you and a bunch of other dumb fucks get together and get a bunch of world buffs and kill Kel'Thuzad? Like, what do you think is a meaning in the game? Like, get the fuck out. It's a joke-ass fucking game. You beat the fuck out of that game 15 years ago. Like, what meaning in the game? You know what meaning in the game is? There's $1 amount for that fucking meaning. And sometimes that was like 20,000 gold in the pot, man. I get 9K out of some of those runs. That was some big fucking money. Yeah, 2 fucking mechanics. What's your point? The point is that, like, the meaning in the game is just bullshit. Like, you're gonna...
I mean, everyone is deriving something different from games. Most people derive just entertainment out of it, fulfillment, whatever it is. Maybe a combination of the two, most likely. But the meaning of the game, I mean, I kind of see what he's saying. If, like, your whole thing is just like getting hard to come by loot and being one of the few people to get it, then okay, then fine. You're not going to be that dude because GDKPs are everywhere because everyone's going to get gear, so you're not feeling special anymore. So if that's your meaning, like what you get out of your game, then true, that's true. Well, you can get that out of other stuff. Like, why do you have to force that on WoW? But in general, I mean, as I keep saying, like, take away the bots and GDKP is perfectly fine. I don't even care about gold sellers. Because if you're selling gold, that's up to you, but it's the botting that's the problem. Because bots are going to be way more efficient at farming gold than you because they can literally do it 24 hours.
Try to make the excuse like, oh, it ruined GDKP for you, then don't fucking do it, bitch!
Yeah, you don't have to do GDKP, just join a guild and progress normally. Like, if you're too lazy to do that, then don't complain about GDKPs. Because to be fair, you're not really on either end of that system. You're not the buyer because you don't have the gold, I'm assuming. And you're not the seller because you're too lazy to, join a guild, gear up, and then start selling your services.
Then don't quit telling everybody else what they gotta do. You don't like GDKP? Don't fucking do GDKP. Damn, it's not hard. God, it's such a bunch of fucking pussies, man.
And that's what I was talking about the lazy peon videos. How he's like, "Oh, I'm trying to play the game. How I've been told to play it," and that's just not how you should try to play games. Just play games how you want to play it. Just like Asmongold, like he likes GDKP, he should be able to do GDKP. If you don't like GDKP, well, guess what? There are other avenues of getting gear without GDKP. You don't have to do GDKP. It's probably one of the more easier options, I suppose, if you are gonna buy gold with real money, but at the same time, it's definitely not the only option.
I hate this. Ugh. Stop making it sound so easy.
It's super easy. Like I know a lot of people have trouble finding like friends and guilds in games. That's honestly because that first step is the hardest. Just like making friends in real life. The first step is always the hardest, putting yourself out there. But it's not difficult. Like, so a lot of people sometimes say I'm a shy person. I'm actually not. Like, I just don't like talking to people. But when I need to talk to them, I don't people. I'll walk up to a stranger and talk to them. I don't care. If I need to talk to you, I'm going to go and talk to you. So it's like, but a lot of people do find that first initial contact, like, it's why some people, when they need assistance or help, like, they have a bit of trouble, like, unless you're wearing like a uniform, like whether that's a store uniform, police uniform, whatever it is, like people kind of have trouble just walking up to a stranger and like, hey, can you help me with this? um, and it's the same with like mmos, like just asking people like, hey, looking for guild with chill people. A lot of games now have it where the guilds put on there like what kind of guild they are. Like, are they chill, they hardcore, do they do PvP, PvE, what times they raid, if they raid, do they do little events? Like, it's just so much easier now than it was even like in classic WoW, and everyone was in a guild in classic WoW. So it's like there's not really an excuse to not to think that it's hard. It's actually super easy. It's more of a case of, one, it is a bit of a commitment, but the main one I actually believe is just messaging, like applying, getting in there, like, hey guys, thanks for inviting me. Um, how do I sign up? Like, just try to be interactive, even if you know how to sign up. Just like, hey guys, can anyone show me how to sign up? Not show me, but like, I signed up for the thing. Could someone make sure that actually did I do that right? Like, um, stuff like that. Just like trying to get involved in the guild is honestly the hardest part, especially early on. I mean, you don't know anyone. No one there is your friend. You can't read body language. It's online, so you can't like really tell if like they even have an interest in speaking to you. But it's not difficult. It's not difficult.
Oh, it's so hard to get a group of people that have the same mindset as me. They better change the
They don't even have to have the same mindset, really.
whole game.
It's mostly the time you can play and whether they're casual, hardcore kind of thing. Like, I guess maybe if that's what he's referring to, a mindset, then yeah,
Get the fuck out of here.
that was a good video. And this is why I prefer to react to Asmin reacting to something else, because it's his commentary on things elevates it, and that is more interesting to me. Like, of course, I'll almost always like watch the original video.
Whether it's
Thankfully,
the small
Asmin makes that easy. Put a like. I don't know if I'll subscribe to him because didn't really agree with a lot of his points, but yeah, no, good video though, really good video. All right, this one. I saw a little bit of this, and I don't know if I agree with almost anything. If I remember right, I didn't really watch too much because I prefer not to. But let's take a Force Gaming. Like, he's definitely one of my favorite YouTubers. So see what he says.
If you weren't there for the alpha launch release of Arcade all the way
I was not, but I had friends that were.
back in 2014, let me tell you, you missed out on a real special, unique MMO experience. While
I was told that by my friends, but from how they explained it, it didn't seem that much different than Warcraft's open world PvP. Like, back when Warcraft had like a lot of world open PvP.
while on the surface, it might look like yet just another Eastern tab target MMO, there were layers
Nothing wrong
upon
with that.
layers of really cool, fun, engaging gameplay systems that made ArcAge a super memorable time. I mean, I would say personally being there for the alpha of ArcAge goes down as like one of my favorite MMO launches ever. It was really, really something unique. So if you weren't there and you don't know, or even if you do, I just want to take some time to recap.
I kind of feel the same about Warhammer, their MMO. Like starting out, like I had a lot of fun PvP and PvE. Obviously, it didn't literally age well, but I still remember like that was one of my favorite MMOs, at least during launch.
Some of the elements and the things about this game that I just loved so much. Yes, at its core, ArcAge was a sandbox PvP open world crafting game. Combat was of the tap target variety, fairly simple there. It lines up with games like World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy XIV, for example. They did have this interesting combo.
Honestly, I've been thinking about giving this game a shot, ArcAge 1. So I think there is a community ran one. I think that's how they phrased it. I don't remember. That supposedly it doesn't have the pay to win things that everyone claims killed ArcAge. I don't know if I agree that pay to win can completely kill a game to the level ArcAge was killed, because it's, how do I explain this? Okay, so the main reason from my understanding on why pay to win killed ArcAge was that it let a few players literally like fly to that ceiling I mentioned in a previously, that ceiling of the game where you're just like maxed out basically. They let players fly there, like, you know, way ahead of the pack. Whales. So that's what killed the game, because these whales would then go kill other people and make the experience really bad for everyone. But and apparently bots were a thing, like really bad. So it's like, okay, so you have two main things, right? You have pay to win, like really hardcore pay to win, and botting. A lot of games have those. None of them died to the degree ArcAge did. And the reason is, of course, player agency, players being able to affect each other to the degree that ArcAge lets them, which is what Ashes is kind of going for. And that's why botting is like, I mentioned it before, botting and Ashes will completely kill that game if it's unchecked. As for the pay to win thing, honestly, that's inevitable. Unless you plan to only have the people who started the game in the first week and never let any new players in after that. Because those players who started the game, like say a month or two ahead of like newer players, it's going to be the same thing as if they pay to win. They're going to be so far ahead of those new players. Those new players are going to get melted just by like looking in a veteran player's direction. Like, and you know there are going to be veteran players that are going to try to farm the newbie zones, if there are any. I don't know how the game worked. I'm assuming if there's levels, there's newbie zones. So it's like, unless it's a specified safe zone, like the lowest level hostile zone that allows open PvP is going to be farmed by high levels. Just going to happen. Like, there's nothing really you can do to stop it unless there's systems in place that heavily disincentivize that. So it's like banning, getting banned, losing access to the game for a few days, like, or hours, whatever it may be. So it's like, but even then, it doesn't really stop them, to be fair. Okay, I mean, that's to me like, I don't know if he's going to bring any of that kind of stuff up, so.
System though, where a lot of the skills in the game would have a base functionality, but then also a combo potential on top of it, where if certain conditions were met, it would apply additional effects. So for
That's almost like Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy has a few things like that, if I remember right. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it has a few things like that, which I really enjoyed.
For example, a lot of the time this would come in the form of increasing the damage by some
There's a few games that do this. I just can't recall them, but I know I've run into it a few times.
percentage. But then there would be things like if an enemy was feared, you might have an ability that would then trip them, or you'd have an ability that if an enemy was already slowed,
I think Dragon Age, I know it's not an MMO, but I'm pretty sure Dragon Age has quite a few of these, like weird, like abilities affecting differently depending on the status of the enemy.
It would apply a stun, or if you had this particular defensive buff, using that ability would also then taunt enemies. And what this had you doing was trying to synergize the different skills that you had at your disposal, because it was limited. You didn't just have access to all of the available skills in
That
the
is
game
cool.
for your particular classes, but you would try to pick skills that would apply debuffs and then have combo potential with the follow-ups of whatever.
I mean, it still will fall into that trope of players finding out the optimal setup and then everyone kind of copy and pasting it. So it just happens with a lot of these games that have the illusion of choice, as they say. I mean, the choice is not exactly an illusion, but for most players, they're just going to go with the most optimal that some hardcore player like spent like weeks like crunching the numbers for. So
whatever you did. It was a really, really cool system. But that combat, its tab target combo system aside, it's pretty basic. One of the first really cool things that I really liked about the game was the class system. So in ArcAge, there are 12 skill trees. And
I heard the classes in this game is like pretty crazy.
each of these are full of active and passive abilities that will fill sort of the traditional fantasy class tropes. There's a tree that's like the warrior tree, a rogue tree, a mage tree, a ranger tree, a cleric tree, etc.
Got some weird names for them. Vitalism. Auramancy. Archery's pretty easy. Battle Rage. That sounds like an ability. Defense. I mean, I think they could have come up with a better name for that. Like maybe Warden or something like that. I don't know. Occultism. That's pretty cool. Songcraft. Like a bard. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And then from those 12 archetypal trees,
I think Battle Rage, I think it was like it probably was like a translation thing. They probably meant Berserker or something like that.
You would select 3 of them, and then depending on the 3 that you chose, that would determine your class.
I mean, that's kind of stupid. Mainly in that, does it really matter what the name of the class is? Because the name of the class does not matter. What matters is the 3 trees you chose. I mean, it's... I don't know if I'm phrasing this right, but you could remove that, just use an eraser and take that out, and it would change nothing. It literally would change nothing. Because this doesn't get affected. This affects that. And this is the important part. This is your skills, your tree. This is just giving you some fluff name that doesn't matter.
It's making for a total of actually over 200 potential class combinations.
You have 200, but I seriously doubt all of them, or even half of them, are viable in terms of like actual gameplay. It wouldn't surprise me if like a dozen were actually what people played, and maybe it depends. It really depends on like if you're PvP, PvE player. In this kind of game, obviously you want to do the one that's like really good at PvP and just good at PvE kind of thing. So it'd probably even lower the amount of actual viable builds even more because PvP is always on. So I don't know. I think because the game just never got into popularity, that kind of issue ever cropped up.
So for example, one of the classes that I played was the Dark Runner, and this was like a melee PvP focused class. I had the Battle Rage.
Like I said, PvP. Like you can't choose a pure PvE in this game because you will get stomped. Like you'll run into too many things that just ruin the experience. It'd be like in Warcraft, like if you went a pure PvP build, like imagine if you didn't have PvP talents that were just part of the normal talents, and you went into all PvP stuff, like you wouldn't have that good of a time trying to run dungeons and quests. Like, what? Who would do that? Like,
tree, kind of like the warrior tree. It had charges, different melee attacks, and a whirlwind ability. Then I had the shadow play as my second tree, and that's kind of roguish with backstabs and stealth. And then the third tree I picked was Auramancy, which is a PvP utility tree. It had access to a blink, various buffs, and shields. So yeah, my class was like a melee warrior that could go...
1 second. All right.
I'm gonna go hang out with my pigeon.
What was he saying?
I don't know.
Let's see.
Oromancy, which is a PvP utility
Oh yeah,
tree. It had
I I saw that. I saw like Oromancy probably was like is gonna be a staple in like 9 out of 10 builds. It has healing, it has shielding.
access
It's
to a
like
blink, various buffs, and shields. So yeah, my
that's just too strong in PvP not to get.
class was like
Even in PvE, honestly.
a melee warrior that could go stealth and do backstab damage with a bunch of PvP utility. However, if I then just swapped one of those 3 trees, it would completely change my class.
It would change your class, but it wouldn't change how you play your class. In a sense, like unless you pick something kind of like ridiculous, like say for example you change Oromancy to Witchcraft, and but you were a Battle Rage Shadow player, so your other 2 classes are very focused on melee. Then you have this random like caster thrown in. That doesn't they don't synergize that well. I would assume so at least. Like I could be wrong, and if I am, I'll find out because like I said, I do plan to at least try to play that community-driven events, not events, server. I don't know. I think you know what I'm talking about, and just see how it goes. Um, there's a lot of things in the game that I've been told about that I really like. I still think open world PvP is kind of dumb. Um, I've never been a fan of it. I know a lot of people like if you like it, you really, really, really like it. If you don't like it, you really, really don't like it. There's few people in the middle. I think open world PvP is okay if you can flag yourself for it. Only because I don't like being forced to play a certain way. It's the exact same reason. Imagine if you play like with the Lazy Peon video when he was talking about Final Fantasy and why he always gets tired of it because he's trying to play it in the way he's been told to play it instead of just playing the way he wants to. And that's what I think about open world PvP is like, well, some days I actually do want to open world PvP. Like I actually like open world PvP. I said it before with the Warcraft video. It was like vanilla WoW. I open world PvP all the time. It was one of my favorite things to do in the game. But at the same time, I don't always want to be doing that. Like sometimes I just want to grind while watching Netflix or something like that. Like I kind of just want to turn my brain off. And it's like getting killed. Like maybe if it's not a big deal, like maybe if the run isn't too long, it wouldn't bother me too much. But at the same time, it probably would because I'm just like, why the hell is this wasting my time? Like I don't want a PvP right now. So it's like I know a lot of people like, oh, like flagging ruins open world PvP. It's like no, it doesn't. It just makes it to where people who want to have an easy time in open world PvP by killing people who aren't that good, yeah, it ruins their experience. But you know what? Who cares? Like these people suck. So it doesn't really matter if their experience is ruined because they're, to be fair, not a majority of the player base unless the game is like all around that, in which case they're probably the majority. But those games are very, very like small compared to other MMOs. They're like usually the smallest MMOs in terms of player base. So I don't know. I don't know how Ash is gonna do it, dude. I understand Lucky Ghost's point of view. I also understand the other content creators' point of view, where they're the ones that are like, oh yeah, it's all the systems are in play to like for this, but it's at the same time it's like, you know, technically you could say that about anything. Like you just replace what the player's purpose is. Like in case of caravans, just have it where if you aren't flagged, like you have to flag yourself in a town. Like you can't just flag on and off whenever you want. That would be stupid. But I think New World kind of does it right, where you have to be in a major town. You flag yourself or unflag yourself, and if you're not flagged when you start a caravan quest, then elites will spawn on your way there just randomly. Boom. Guess what? Players are no longer needed for that function. Like it's a dumb argument to say that it has to be on for the game to function, because that tells me that okay, then that's just Mortal Online 3. Like that is what the game is about, is the PvP, but it's not. Um, you know, I don't know. I went on a weird tangent there, but I think it's because I really don't like that people think that open world PvP is like the holy grail of MMOs.
So for example, if I kept Battle Rage and Shadow Play, but I changed from Oromancy to the Sorcery tree, then I was a Hellweaver. If I swapped to a defensive as my
It's like I said, like that stupid name that you get after the three, like it doesn't make sense. Because whether you go Oromancy or Defense, like the first two, because they're mainly, it's really like you have a main class and then you have a subclass. The main class is like the first two classes, what they kind of synergize with. For example, you go Sorcery, Witchcraft. Guess what? You're a caster. Doesn't really matter what that third one is. You're mainly going to be a caster.
third tree, I would become a Blighter. If I picked Archery, I would become an Outrider, so on and so on, which then totals up to a list with the swapping of.
Because there's also like your weapon. Like if you have a bow, you're you're a ranger. Whether you do magic, like to your like bow attacks and stuff, you're still technically a ranger. You got a sword, kind of a warrior. You got a dagger, pretty much a rogue. So it's like, it's just different skills.
Of each of these trees of over 200 classes. It was just a really cool and at the time for me unique way to structure classes in an MMO. ArcAge also hosted a full-on open world with no loading between zones and a ton of verticality. Hills.
No loading between zones. I mean, it's hard to say whether that would be good or not because obviously kind of Warcraft has similar. If more players would make that bad or not. I don't know. From what I understand, Arcade's never really blew up, so it's hard to say if their servers would have been able to handle it.
Cliffs, mountains everywhere, and why this is interesting is because it was fully explorable. You could go up the sides of mountains, and there was also different scaling points besides actually just walking up a trail. There would be things like vines and ladders that you could climb with your character.
That's pretty cool. That's like what the heck am I thinking? Zelda, Breath of the Wild kind of thing. I really like that in games.
The game had a mount system.
Okay. Is that not loading right? What's going on? Did I lose internet? Is the stream even going? That's gonna be funny.
The third tree I picked was Oromancy, which is a PvP.
What the heck? Let me close up some of these tabs. Maybe that's what's happening. Let's try that again.
PvP utility. Really, really cool system. But that combat, you know, its tab target combo system aside, it's pretty basic. One of the first really cool things that I...
Man, that is so weird. It shows up down here, but when you click it, nothing. Is it like this? So that... No, that works just fine. What the heck is going on with this?
I just loved that would then trip, then just swapped.
Ah, that sucks. Okay, what is going on? Kind of wish I wouldn't have to do this, but I think I may have to, where it's just like completely close out that window. Oh wow, maybe it's YouTube. Is YouTube down? As weird as that would be. Like if I start streaming, like, you know, I'm probably gonna save this preach video for another day, because it's, or maybe later today. I don't know, because it's a long video, and if I'm gonna be commentarying on it, which is, I'd prefer not to just watch it. I'd prefer really actually talking about it, because I really like talking about MMOs and stuff. Man, I think YouTube's down. That is crazy, man. Looks, my stream says it's still going, so it's like, what is going on? Dude. So I just watch this instead? Come on. Is it? I wonder if it's my internet, man. I usually have a pretty stable connection. I mean, it's kind of my job to have a freaking stable connection, so it's like I've never had issues like that. Let me check a look at the weather. Is it freaking storming out or something like that? Yeah, Wi-Fi works. It's kind of a joke. Let's see here. We'll bring up YouTube on something else. Oh, it's not really loading. Let me get off on my Wi-Fi, see if that does anything. Yeah, it's my internet. Are you kidding me, man? You know what? I might just end this for a little bit because I'm probably gonna have to reset my like modem or something. That is crazy, man. I mean, I see you guys want to like suggest videos and stuff. Like, I have no problem with that. I'm not gonna guarantee anything. But why not? You know, especially if it's like game related, I most likely will see it whether you suggest it or not. Um, but man, this is actually it's a bit sad. All right, well, I don't know if you can even hear me, but yeah, I'll go ahead and stop the stream here because it's not working. So sucks. Well, once again, thanks for watching. Take care, guys, and yeah, see you.